When a stranger's heartbeat becomes the only sound keeping you alive, you know you've crossed a line you can never uncross. Ava Cole didn't mean to fall asleep in a killer's car. She didn't plan to wake up staring into eyes that had seen more death than mercy. But on that rain-drenched October night, exhausted beyond reason and numb from another brutal shift, she made a choice that would unravel everything she thought she knew about safety, morality, and the razor-thin line between fear and fascination. Stay with me until the end. Drop a like and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain came down like broken glass. Ava stood under the flickering hospital awning, scrubs soaked through despite the thin overhang, phone clutched in one trembling hand. The screen showed the same thing it had for the past 20 minutes. Your driver is 4 minutes away, then 6, then 11, then back to 4 like some cosmic joke she was too tired to laugh at. Her feet screamed. 12 hours. 12 hours of compressions, and code blues and families falling apart in waiting rooms that smelled like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. Mrs. Patterson had died at 9 p.m. Mr. Chen at 11:47, both on her watch, both after she'd done everything right, and it still wasn't enough. She pressed her eyes shut against the sting. "Come on," she whispered to the phone. "Just come on." A car slid up to the curb. Black sedan, rain beating off the hood in silver rivulets. Not the beaten-up Toyota she'd been expecting, but close enough in this light, in this rain, in this state of mind where details blurred into irrelevance. Ava wrenched the door open and collapsed into the back seat. Warmth hit her first. Leather, real leather, not the cracked vinyl of ride shares. Then the smell, something dark and expensive, cedar maybe, with an undertone of smoke. Her brain registered wrongness in a distant academic way, but her body had already surrendered. She pulled the door shut, blocking out the rain's assault, and let her head fall back against the headrest. "Thank God," she breathed. "I thought you'd never—" "You're not my passenger," the voice came from her left. Male, low, completely calm in a way that made the hair on her neck stand up despite the warmth. Ava's eyes snapped open. The man in the driver's seat wasn't looking at her. His hands rested on the wheel, relaxed, fingers drumming a slow pattern against the leather. Dark hair pushed back from his face, sharp jawline, shoulders that filled out his black coat like he'd been poured into it. In the green glow of the dashboard, his profile could have been carved from stone. "Oh, God!" Ava grabbed for the door handle. "I'm so sorry. I thought—" The app said, "Don't." One word. He still hadn't turned to look at her. "My ride," Ava stammered. "I'm waiting for a ride, and I thought—" "Your ride is that." He nodded toward the windshield. Ava followed his gaze. Another sedan, actually beaten up, actually Toyota, pulled up 20 feet ahead. Her phone buzzed. "Your driver has arrived." "Right." Heat flooded her cheeks. "I'm sorry. I had a long shift, and you're a nurse." Not a question. Ava glanced down at herself. Scrubs. Name badge still clipped to her chest, though she couldn't read it in this light. Blood on her sleeve from where Mr. Chen's IV had pulled out during the code. "Yeah." She reached for the handle again. "Look, I'm really—" "Stay." The word landed like a hand on her chest. Ava froze. "What?" "You'll get soaked again running to that car." His fingers stilled on the wheel. "And you look like you might fall over if the wind hits you wrong." It wasn't a threat. That was the strange part. His tone held no malice, no demand, just observation, delivered in that same unsettling calm. "I'm fine," Ava said, but her voice shook. "I should go." "You should sleep." "I don't." She blinked hard, fighting the weight in her skull. "I don't know you." "No." Finally, he turned to look at her. Ava's breath caught. His eyes were gray. Not blue-gray or green-gray, but pure gray. Like storm clouds, like steel. They swept over her face with an intensity that should have felt invasive, but somehow didn't. Clinical, almost. Like he was cataloging her the way she cataloged patients in triage. "You don't know me," he agreed. "But I'm not going to hurt you." That's exactly what someone who's going to hurt me would say. The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. "Fair point." Ava's phone buzzed again. "Where are you?" From the driver ahead. "I need to go," she said. But she didn't move. Couldn't. Those eyes held her pinned like a specimen under glass. Then go. He said it quietly, released her with those two syllables, turned back to face the windshield, hands resuming that slow drum against the wheel. Ava should have bolted. Every rational cell in her body screamed at her to get out, get to the real ride, get home and lock the door and forget this ever happened. Instead, she heard herself say, "Why? Why what? Why tell me to stay if you're just going to tell me to go?" He was quiet for a long moment. Rain hammered the roof, a constant percussion that filled the silence. "Because you're exhausted," he said finally, "and scared. And I'm curious which one wins." "That's," Ava started, then stopped. Her head swam. The warmth of the car, the leather smell, the rhythm of the rain, it all conspired against her. "That's a weird thing to say. I'm a weird person." Her phone buzzed a third time. Ava looked at it, looked at the rain, looked at the man who'd just given her permission to leave and somehow made it impossible. "This is insane," she muttered. Probably. She should have gotten out. She meant to get out. But her thumb was already moving across the screen, typing, "Sorry, wrong car," to the driver, watching him pull away from the curb with a spray of water that caught the streetlight like scattered diamonds. "I'm staying 5 minutes," Ava said. It sounded weak even to her own ears. "Until the rain lets up." "All right." "Then I'm calling another ride." "All right. And if you try anything, I won't." The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it terrified her, because she believed him. She'd been a nurse for 6 years, had developed instincts about people, about danger, about who to trust in moments when seconds mattered. This man was dangerous. She knew that with bone-deep certainty, but not to her, not right now. That was the truly insane part. Ava leaned back against the seat, just for a minute, just until her heart stopped trying to punch through her ribs. "What's your name?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. "Does it matter?" "I'm sitting in a stranger's car in the middle of the night. Humor me." Another almost smile. "Adrian?" "Ava." "I know." She touched her badge reflexively. "Right." "What are you doing here, Adrian? At a hospital at midnight?" "Waiting for someone." "Your passenger, the one I'm not." "Yes." "Are they okay?" Nurse instinct. She couldn't help it. Adrian's jaw tightened, barely perceptible. "They will be." The way he said it made her think of Mr. Chen, of Mrs. Patterson. Of all the times she'd told families the same thing and been wrong. "I lost 2 people tonight," Ava said. She didn't know why she was telling him this. Did everything right. Followed every protocol. They still died. "That's not on you." "Isn't it?" "No." He said it with finality, like he was used to making pronouncements that didn't get questioned. "Death comes when it comes. You're just there to hold the door." "That's bleak." "That's true." Ava closed her eyes. The rain sounded farther away now, muffled. Her limbs felt heavy, like someone had filled them with sand. Just a minute. She'd rest for just a minute, then call another car, then go home and shower and try to scrub this whole strange night off her skin. "You should sleep," Adrian said again, softer this time. "Can't." But her voice had gone thick. "Don't know you." "You don't need to." "Dangerous." "Not to you." The last thing she registered was warmth. Someone, Adrian, draping something soft over her shoulders. A coat. His coat, probably, which was crazy, which was wrong, which she should protest. But the warmth won. The exhaustion won. Sleep pulled her under like a riptide, and Ava Cole stopped fighting. To what? She woke to silence. Not the absence of sound. Ava could hear traffic somewhere distant, the hum of an engine, her own breathing. But the rain had stopped. The percussion that had lulled her under was gone, replaced by an eerie stillness. Ava's eyes flew open. Gray morning light filtered through the windows. She was still in the car, still in the back seat. The coat over her shoulders was real, expensive wool, heavier than anything she owned, and she was alone. "No." Ava sat up too fast, head spinning. "No, no, no." The driver's seat was empty. The car was parked in a residential area she didn't recognize, tree-lined street, nice houses set back from the road. Her phone sat on the seat beside her, plugged into a charger that definitely hadn't been there before. 7:43 a.m. She'd been asleep for over 7 hours. Oh God! Ava grabbed her phone with shaking hands. 17 missed calls, texts from her roommate Sarah, increasingly frantic. Where are you? Ava, answer your phone. I'm calling the police. She was already dialing Sarah back when she noticed the note. Plain white paper, folded once, sitting on the center console. Her name written on the outside in dark, precise handwriting. Ava stared at it while Sarah's phone rang, and rang, and rang. Hello? Sarah's voice was sharp with panic. Ava? Jesus Christ, where have you... I'm okay. Ava cut her off. I'm fine, I'm sorry. My phone died and... Your phone died for 7 hours? I was about to file a missing persons report. I know, I'm sorry. Ava reached for the note with her free hand, unfolding it. I fell asleep. I'm calling a car right now. I'll be home in 20 minutes. She only half listened to Sarah's relief and anger as she read the note. You needed the rest. Your phone's charged. There's coffee in the cup holder and $40 for a car home. Don't take rides from strangers, Ava. Most of us aren't safe. The coffee was real. Foam cup from an actual cafe, still warm, sitting in the cup holder beside 2 crisp $20 bills. Are you even listening? Sarah demanded in her ear. Yeah, Ava lied. She folded the note carefully, hands steadier than they should be. I'm listening. I'll be home soon. She ended the call before Sarah could launch into another round of questions Ava didn't have answers for. The coffee was good. Perfect, actually. Almond milk, 1 sugar, exactly how she took it, which meant he'd either guessed or no. There was no reasonable explanation for him knowing that. Ava drank it anyway. Used the money to call a car. Kept the note. Kept the coat, too, because it felt wrong to leave it behind and she didn't know how to return it. Didn't even know his last name. Didn't know where he'd gone or why he'd let her sleep for 7 hours in his car without waking her or calling the police or doing any of the normal things a normal person would do when a stranger passed out in their back seat. Most of us aren't safe. Ava read the line again while she waited for her ride. The implication was clear. I'm not safe. I'm just safe for you. She should have been terrified. Should have gone straight to the police with a description, filed a report, done something official and responsible. Instead, she traced the letters of his name with 1 finger and wondered when she'd see him again. Because she would. She knew that with the same bone-deep certainty that had told her he wouldn't hurt her. This wasn't over. It had barely begun. The clinic smelled like antiseptic and old coffee. Ava moved through her shift on autopilot. Vitals, medications, charting, the endless rhythm of hospital work that usually grounded her. Today, it felt like moving through fog. Her body went through the motions while her mind stayed stuck in that car, turning over every detail like evidence at a crime scene. You okay? Marcus, one of the ER docs, caught her arm as she passed the nurse's station. You've been quiet all day. Fine. Ava forced a smile. Just tired. Yeah, I heard you worked a double yesterday. That's brutal. He squeezed her shoulder. Go home early if you need to. I'll cover. Thanks. She didn't go home early. Couldn't face Sarah's questions yet. Couldn't face the apartment where everything was normal and explainable and didn't involve mysterious men who let strangers sleep in their cars and somehow knew how they took their coffee. Instead, Ava stayed late. Picked up an extra patient. Reorganized the supply closet that didn't need reorganizing. Anything to keep her hands busy and her mind occupied. It didn't work. At 9 p.m., she finally gave up and headed for the parking garage. The hospital had emptied out, most of the day shift long gone, night shift settled into their routines. Her footsteps echoed in the concrete stairwell, lonely and too loud. Ava was halfway to her car when she saw him. Adrian leaned against a black SUV 3 spaces down from her beat-up Civic, arms crossed, perfectly still. He wore different clothes, dark jeans, leather jacket, but the same watchful calm, like he'd been there for hours and could wait for hours more. Ava's keys bit into her palm. You're following me? No. You're in the hospital parking garage where I work. Yes. That's following me. That's waiting for you. He pushed off the SUV, hands sliding into his pockets. Unthreatening posture, but it didn't matter. He moved like violence was a language he spoke fluently. There's a difference. Not to me. Fair enough. He stopped a few feet away, close enough to talk, far enough that she could run if she needed to. I wanted to make sure you got home okay yesterday. You left me asleep in your car in a strange neighborhood. I left you asleep in a safe neighborhood with a charged phone and cab fare. That's not, Ava started, then stopped. How did you know how I take my coffee? Something flickered in his eyes. Lucky guess. No one's that lucky. I pay attention. To what? You didn't even look at me for the first 10 minutes. I looked enough. He tilted his head slightly, studying her. You had a coffee cup in your bag. The stain on the side showed foam from almond milk, single sugar packets stuck to the bottom. Ava's mouth went dry. That's observant. Creepy. Also fair. His lips quirked. You kept my coat. She'd washed it, hung it in her closet, told herself she'd return it when the opportunity presented itself, knowing she was lying. I didn't know where to return it, Ava said. You could have left it in the car. I wasn't thinking clearly. No, Adrian agreed. You were exhausted. How's that going, by the way? How's what going? The guilt. Over your two patients. Ava's breath caught. I didn't tell you their names. You didn't have to. I could see it in your face. He said it gently. You think if you'd been sharper, less tired, you might have saved them. I don't. You do. Adrian stepped closer. But you're wrong. I looked up the cases. Mrs. Patterson, massive stroke. Mr. Chen, cardiac arrest after years of heart disease. Neither one was preventable. You gave them dignity at the end. That's more than most people get. Ice slid down Ava's spine. You looked up my patients? I wanted to know if you had a reason to feel guilty. That's a HIPAA violation. How did you even... I have access to information most people don't. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting right now. Ava's hands shook. She should have been furious, should have been running for security, calling the police, doing anything except standing here while this stranger admitted to stalking her medical records. But underneath the fear was something else, something that felt uncomfortably like curiosity. Why? She asked. Why do you care if I feel guilty about patients you don't know? Because guilt is a waste, Adrian said, especially when it's not earned. You don't know me well enough to make that call. I know you well enough to know you're punishing yourself for things outside your control. He paused. I also know you're going to say yes. To what? My offer. You haven't made an offer. I'm about to. Adrian pulled a card from his jacket pocket, held it out, plain black, no writing visible in the dim garage light. I need a nurse. Someone discreet. Someone skilled. Someone who understands that sometimes the right thing and the legal thing aren't the same. Ava didn't take the card. I work at a hospital. You work too many shifts at a hospital that doesn't appreciate you and doesn't pay you nearly what you're worth. You don't know what I'm worth. I know you have student loans from 3 different schools because you kept getting financial aid pulled. I know you send money home to your mother every month, even though you can barely afford your rent. I know you're one emergency away from broke. The ice in Ava's spine turned to fire. Stop. I'm not trying to scare you. Then what are you trying to do? Give you a choice. Adrian stepped closer, close enough that she could see the gray of his eyes in the fluorescent light. Work for me. Part-time. Decent money. Medical care for people who can't go to hospitals. Why can't they go to hospitals? Because they'd be arrested if they did. At least he was honest. Ava laughed, sharp and bitter. You want me to patch up criminals? I want you to save lives. The circumstances are just different than what you're used to. Different, right. She shook her head. This is insane, probably. I could lose my license. You could save people who'd die otherwise. I save people here. When the system lets you, Adrian's voice stayed level. But what about when it doesn't? What about the uninsured, the undocumented, the people who can't afford to walk through those doors? He gestured at the hospital behind them. You became a nurse to help people. I'm offering you a chance to help more of them. By working for a criminal, by working with people who need help. He paused. I'm not going to lie to you, Ava. The work isn't clean. The patients aren't innocent, but they're human, and they bleed just like everyone else. Ava's mind raced. This was wrong, illegal, dangerous. Everything her training, her ethics, her common sense screamed against. But Mr. Chen had died because he couldn't afford his medications. Mrs. Patterson had delayed treatment for months because of insurance denials. Last week, Ava had watched a man refuse a CT scan because the copay would have bankrupted him. The system didn't work. She knew that. Had known it for years. Think about it, Adrian said, pressing the card into her hand before she could refuse. That's all I'm asking. Think about it. And if I say no? Then I disappear. You never see me again. No pressure, no consequences. You expect me to believe that? I expect you to be smart enough to know I wouldn't waste time threatening someone I'm trying to recruit. He started backing toward his SUV. You have my number now. Call if you're interested. Delete it if you're not. I'm not interested. Okay. I mean it. I believe you. He opened the car door, paused. For what it's worth, you would have saved them if you could have. Both of them. That's not guilt talking. That's truth. Then he was gone, pulling out of the garage in a whisper of expensive engine and tinted windows, leaving Ava standing alone with a black card in her hand and a choice she'd already made even though she didn't want to admit it yet. She looked at the card under the garage lights. Just a phone number. No name, no address, nothing else. Ava should have thrown it away. Should have torn it up, tossed it in the trash, gone home and forgotten this whole bizarre encounter. Instead, she took a picture of the number, saved it to her contacts as, "Don't call this." Then she went home and didn't sleep. 3 days. Ava gave herself 3 days to be rational. 3 days to talk herself out of the stupidest decision of her life. It didn't work. She tried everything. Extra shifts to stay busy, long runs to burn off the restless energy. Heart-to-hearts with Sarah, where she talked around the actual problem because, how do you explain, a dangerous stranger offered me a job helping criminals and I'm actually considering it without sounding insane? By day 2, she'd Googled Adrian's number. Nothing. Completely unlisted, untraceable. By day 3, she'd drafted and deleted 17 different texts. On day 4, she broke. The shift had been hell. Overcrowded ER, not enough staff, a gunshot victim who bled out while they waited for an OR to open up. Ava had done compressions until her arms screamed, had pushed meds she knew wouldn't be enough, had called the time of death on a kid who should have lived. 16 years old, caught in crossfire. Dead because the system moved too slow. She sat in her car in the parking garage afterward, still in bloody scrubs, and pulled up the number. Is the offer still open? Send. The response came in less than a minute. Yes. Are you accepting? Ava stared at her phone. Last chance to back out. Last chance to be smart, be safe, be the person she'd spent her whole life trying to be. She thought of the kid on the table, of Mr. Chen, of Mrs. Patterson, of every patient lost to a system that valued money over lives. I have conditions. Name them. 1. I only work medical cases. No violence, no criminal activity. 2. I'm anonymous. No one knows my real name. 3. I walk away whenever I want. No questions. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Agreed. When can you start? Ava closed her eyes, felt the world tilt sideways, felt herself step off a cliff she'd never be able to climb back up. Tonight. I'll send an address. Come alone. Basi. The address led to a warehouse in a part of town Ava usually avoided. Industrial area, poorly lit, the kind of place where people minded their own business because asking questions was dangerous. She parked under a broken streetlight and checked her phone. Inside. 3rd door on the left. Knocked twice. Her hands were steady as she locked the car. Steadier than they should be, maybe. Some distant part of her brain screamed that this was a trap, a setup, the beginning of a true crime podcast where she'd be the cautionary tale. The rest of her was too tired to care. The warehouse looked abandoned from outside. Graffitied walls, broken windows on the upper floors, a rusted loading dock. But the door opened smoothly when Ava tried it, well-oiled hinges silent. Inside was cleaner. Concrete floors swept, lights that actually worked. The industrial smell of old metal and dust, but underneath it something sharper. Antiseptic. Third door on the left. Ava knocked twice. Adrian opened it immediately, like he'd been waiting on the other side. "You came," he said. "You sound surprised." "I wasn't sure you would." He stepped back, gesturing her inside. "Most people don't." The room beyond looked like a medical clinic. Exam table, cabinets of supplies, equipment that was dated but functional, clean, organized, more legitimate than Ava had expected. "This is where you bring them?" she asked. "Some of them, the ones who aren't critical." Adrian closed the door behind her. "Critical cases go elsewhere, somewhere more equipped. And you want me to staff this place?" "Among other things." He walked to the cabinets, started pulling out supplies. "I need someone I can call when situations are complicated. Someone who can think on their feet. Someone who won't panic." "You don't know if I panic." "Yes, I do." Adrian glanced at her. "You slept in a stranger's car for 7 hours. Either you're dangerously naive or you have instincts you trust. I'm betting on the latter." "That's a hell of a bet. I'm good at reading people. Or I'm good at seeming trustworthy." "Also possible." He set out gauze, antiseptic, a suture kit. "But I don't think so. You're here because you care about saving lives more than you care about rules. That's exactly what I need." Ava circled the exam table, running her hand over the vinyl surface. "What happened to your last nurse?" "Retired." "Voluntarily?" "Yes." Adrian's jaw tightened. "I don't hurt my people, Ava. That's not how this works." "Then how does it work?" "You show up when I call. You don't ask questions about who or why. You do your job and you go home." He paused. "And you never ever talk about what you see here." "That's vague." "It has to be." Ava turned to face him. "I need more than that. I need to know what I'm walking into." Adrian studied her for a long moment. Then he crossed to the exam table, leaned against it. "I run things," he said carefully. "In this city, certain operations need oversight, protection, organization. People come to me when they need problems solved. You're a crime boss. I prefer independent contractor, but yes." At least he wasn't dancing around it. "And your people get hurt," Ava continued. "Sometimes. In ways they can't go to hospitals for. Frequently. Because they'd be arrested. Or killed." Adrian's voice stayed level. "The people I employ are in a dangerous line of work. They need medical care that doesn't come with questions or police reports. That's where you come in." Ava's heart hammered. "And if I say no now, after seeing all this?" "Then you leave. I don't hurt civilians, Ava, especially not ones who are just trying to make the right choice." "This isn't the right choice." "Maybe not." Adrian pushed off the table. "But it's a choice that keeps people alive. Isn't that what you signed up for?" It was a low blow. He knew it. Ava could see it in the slight tension around his eyes, the way he watched for her reaction. She should have walked out. Should have called the police the second she was clear. Should have done a lot of things. "If I do this," she said slowly, "I need guarantees." "Name them." "I'm never involved in violence." "Never." "Agreed." "I treat everyone the same. I don't care what they've done. Patient care comes first." "Agreed." "And you?" She pointed at him. "You stay out of my way. I run my clinic how I see fit. No interference." Something flickered in Adrian's expression. "Your clinic?" "If I'm risking everything for this, it's mine. My rules, my standards, my decisions." He was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. Actually smiled, small and genuine. "Deal," Adrian said, extending his hand. Ava looked at it, looked at him, looked at the exam table and the supplies and the clean, organized space that could save lives the system had abandoned. She shook his hand. His grip was warm, steady, the handshake of someone who kept his word even when it cost him. "Welcome aboard, Ava." "I haven't said yes yet." "Yes, you have." Adrian released her hand. "You just don't want to admit it." He was right, and that terrified her more than anything else. Shouts. The first patient came that night. Ava had just finished inventorying the supplies, noting what was there, what was missing, what needed to be replaced. When Adrian's phone buzzed, he read the message, face going carefully blank. What? Ava asked. Incoming. Knife wound. Sounds superficial. How long? 5 minutes. Ava's training kicked in before her nerves could catch up. I need better light over the exam table, and that autoclave doesn't look functional. I'll get the light. Autoclave's in the back room. Adrian was already moving. Anything else? Gloves. Real ones. Not those cheap latex things. And better sutures. Those look like they're from 1995. I'll add it to the list. They worked in synchronized silence, Ava prepping the space while Adrian made calls, sent texts, moved with the efficiency of someone used to crisis management. When the knock came, 3 rapid taps. Ava's hands were steady. Adrian opened the door. 2 men hauled in a third between them. Young, maybe 20, bleeding from his side but conscious. His face was pale, sweat slicked, eyes wide with pain. Exam table, Ava instructed, gloves already on. Gentle. They lowered him carefully. The kid hissed through his teeth. What's your name? Ava asked, cutting away his shirt. Does it matter? His voice shook. I need to call you something. Jay? Okay, Jay. I'm Ava. I'm a nurse. I'm going to take care of you. She peeled back the fabric, assessed the damage. Clean slice, about 4 inches long, bleeding but not spurting. No arterial involvement. This is going to hurt, but I need to clean it. You with me? Yeah. Jay's hand shot out, grabbed her wrist. You're not calling anyone, right? No police, Ava said firmly. She gently extracted her wrist, met his eyes. You're safe here. I promise. Something in her voice must have convinced him. Jay released her, nodded. Ava worked quickly, irrigated the wound, probed for depth, checked for internal damage. The knife had caught mostly fat and muscle, painful, but not life-threatening. You're lucky, she told Jay. Half an inch deeper and we'd be having a different conversation. Don't feel lucky. You're alive, that's lucky enough. She started suturing, movements precise. Who did this? Don't ask questions, one of Jay's companions muttered. I'm asking, Ava said without looking up. If someone's going around stabbing people, I need to know if more are coming. Adrian appeared at her elbow. It was contained, no more incoming. You sure? I'm sure. Ava glanced at him, then back to her work. Fine. Jay, you're going to need antibiotics and rest, real rest, not whatever you usually do. How long? 2 weeks minimum. Keep the wound clean and dry. Change the dressing daily. Watch for infection, redness, heat, pus, fever. Any of that shows up, you call immediately. Call who? Ava looked at Adrian. Me, he said. You call me. She finished the last suture, bandaged the wound, helped Jay sit up slowly. You're good at this, Jay said, studying her face. Like, really good. It's my job. No, I mean, he gestured vaguely. You're not scared. Ava cleaned her instruments, didn't meet his eyes. Should I be? Most people are. Of us. Of this. I've seen worse in the ER on a Saturday night. She disposed of this bloody gauze, stripped off her gloves. You're just another patient, Jay. Nothing to be scared of. The lie felt smooth on her tongue, natural even. Jay's companions helped him off the table. Adrian handed over a bag, probably medications, Ava assumed, and ushered them out with quiet efficiency. When the door closed, silence filled the clinic. Ava stood at the sink, scrubbing her hands even though she'd worn gloves. Her reflection in the small mirror looked the same as always. Same brown eyes, same tired face, same ponytail coming loose from 12 hours of wear. But something had shifted. She could feel it in her bones. You did well, Adrian said behind her. Don't. Don't what? Congratulate me for patching up someone who probably got stabbed doing something illegal. Ava dried her hands roughly. This isn't a win. He's alive. That's a win. He's alive because I broke about 15 different laws tonight. You're alive because you made a choice. Adrian moved to stand beside her, reflected in the same mirror. Was it the wrong one? Ava thought of Jay's pale face, his terrified eyes, the way he'd grabbed her wrist and asked if she'd call someone. She thought of all the patients she'd lost to a system that didn't care. I don't know, she said honestly. That's fair. They stood there in silence, side by side, two people on opposite sides of every line that mattered and somehow in the same room anyway. You should go home, Adrian said finally. Get some sleep. What about you? I have work to do. At midnight? My work doesn't keep office hours. Ava turned to face him. When's the next patient? I don't know. Could be tomorrow. Could be next week. How will you reach me? The number you texted from. I'll use that. Adrian paused. Unless you want a burner phone. Do I need one? Probably safer. Then, yes. He pulled a phone from his pocket, a cheap flip model that looked like it belonged in 2005, and handed it over. It's clean. Only I have the number. Keep it charged. Ava took it, weighed it in her palm. This is really happening. Yes. I'm really doing this. Yes. She laughed, short and sharp. My mother would kill me if she knew. Then don't tell her. I don't tell her a lot of things. Ava pocketed the burner. She thinks I'm living the dream. Nursing degree, stable job, helping people. You are helping people. Just not the way she imagined. Adrian's expression softened slightly. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Not the legal thing, not the safe thing, but the right thing. You would think that. I would. He walked her to the door. Text me when you get home, so I know you made it safely. You worried about me, Adrian? I'm protective of my investments. It should have sounded cold, clinical. Instead, it felt oddly warm. Ava left without another word, walked to her car through the dark warehouse, drove home through empty streets while her mind replayed every moment of the last hour. She'd done it, actually done it, crossed a line she'd never be able to uncross. And the worst part? She wasn't sure she regretted it. When she got home, Sarah was asleep. Ava showered, changed, fell into bed exhausted. The burner phone sat on her nightstand, silent but present. She picked it up, sent a single text to the only number programmed in. Home safe. The response came immediately. Good. Sleep well, Ava. She did. For the first time in weeks, she slept without dreaming of the patients she couldn't save. The burner phone became a fixture in Ava's life, the way shadows became part of the landscape. Always there, impossible to ignore, darkening everything it touched. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. The phone stayed silent except for brief check-ins from Adrian. One-line texts. Status? She'd respond, good. Nothing more needed. At the hospital, Ava moved through her shifts in a split reality. Half of her existed in the fluorescent-lit ER, doing compressions, hanging IVs, charting medications with practiced efficiency. The other half lived in that warehouse clinic, replaying Jay's terrified eyes, the weight of the suture needle, the metallic smell of blood on concrete. Sarah noticed something was off. You're being weird, she said one morning, leaning against Ava's doorframe with coffee in hand. Weirder than usual, I mean. Ava didn't look up from lacing her sneakers. I'm not being weird. You check your phone every 5 seconds. You disappear at random hours. Last Tuesday, you came home at 4 a.m. smelling like antiseptic. I picked up an extra shift. You're lying. Ava's hand stilled on the laces. Sarah, I'm not asking you to tell me. Sarah's voice softened. I'm just saying I notice, and whatever it is, be careful. She left before Ava could formulate a response, before Ava could decide if she wanted to. The phone buzzed that afternoon. Incoming, GSW to the shoulder, 20 minutes. Ava read it 3 times, stomach dropping. GSW, gunshot wound. She texted back with shaking hands. I said no violence. This is medical care. Not violence. Someone shot him. Yes. And now you're going to keep him from dying. Isn't that what you do? Ava wanted to throw the phone across the room, wanted to text back that this wasn't the deal, wasn't what she'd agreed to, wasn't worth the risk. But her fingers were already moving, muscle memory overriding good sense. I'll be there in 15. She made it in 12. The warehouse was different this time. More people. 4 men she didn't recognize, all armed, all watching her with varying degrees of suspicion as she pushed through the door. Adrian stood in the center of the main floor, phone pressed to his ear, his free hand gesturing sharp instructions to someone she couldn't see. He saw her, ended the call mid-sentence. He's in the clinic, Adrian said, conscious but losing blood fast. Ava didn't waste time arguing. She shouldered past him, through the third door, into controlled chaos. The man on the exam table was older than Jay, mid-30s maybe, built like he lifted cars for fun. Blood soaked through the makeshift bandage on his shoulder, dripped onto the floor in a steady rhythm that made Ava's training scream. A woman stood beside him, pressure on the wound, tears streaming down her face. "Move," Ava ordered. The woman hesitated. "Now." She moved. Ava stepped in, gloved hands already assessing. Entry wound high on the shoulder, exit wound through the back. Through and through, which was good, but the angle was wrong, the placement too close to major vessels. "What's your name?" Ava asked the man. "Marcus?" His voice came thin, reedy. Bad sign. "Marcus, I need you to stay still. Can you do that?" "Hurts." "I know. It's going to hurt worse in a minute." She looked at the woman. "Are you family?" "His wife, Lisa." "Lisa, I need you to get me the IV kit from that cabinet. Blue box, second shelf." Lisa scrambled to comply. Ava worked fast, cutting away Marcus's shirt, exposing the full extent of the damage. The bleeding was arterial. Not spurting, but steady. Subclavian artery, maybe, or one of its branches. "Adrian," she called without looking up. He appeared in the doorway. "Yeah." "I need a surgeon. This is beyond my scope." "No hospitals." "I didn't say hospital. I said surgeon." Ava met his eyes. "You want him to live? You find me someone who can operate. Now." Something passed across Adrian's face. Calculation, decision, acceptance. "I'll make a call." He disappeared. Lisa returned with the IV kit, hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped it. "Hey." Ava's voice went soft. "Lisa, look at me. I need you to breathe. Can you do that?" "Is he—" Lisa's voice broke. "Is he going to die?" "Not if I can help it." Ava started the IV, pushed fluids. "But I need you calm. Your husband needs you calm. Okay?" Lisa nodded, wiped her eyes, pulled herself together in the way people do when falling apart isn't an option. Ava worked. Pressure on the wound, fluids running, vitals every 2 minutes. Marcus's blood pressure was dropping. Not catastrophically, not yet, but the trend was clear. "Stay with me, Marcus," she murmured, eyes open. "Tell me about your wife." "Met her in high school." His words slurred slightly. "Hated me. At first?" "Smart woman." Ava adjusted the pressure. "When'd she come around?" "Junior prom. I asked. She said yes. Been stuck. With me since." Lisa laughed through tears. "Worst decision I ever made." "Best," Marcus corrected. "Worst," she insisted, but she was holding his hand now, gripped tight enough to hurt. 15 minutes crawled by, then 20. Ava's arms burned from maintaining pressure. Her back screamed from leaning over the table, but she didn't let up. The door opened. A woman swept in like she owned the place. 50s, steel gray hair pulled back, eyes sharp behind frameless glasses. She wore a long coat over surgical scrubs, carried a leather bag that looked older than Ava. "You must be the nurse," she said, already stripping off the coat. "I'm Helen." "Dr. Shaw," Adrian supplied from behind her. "Best trauma surgeon on the East Coast." "Former trauma surgeon." Helen washed her hands at the sink, movements efficient. "I retired from that particular circus. Now, I apparently make house calls for dangerous men with more money than sense." "You love it," Adrian said. "I tolerate it." Helen approached the table, assessed Marcus with a practiced eye. "Subclavian branch laceration. Possibly some brachial plexus involvement. You've done well keeping him stable, but he needs an OR." "But can you do it here?" Ava asked. Helen looked around the clinic. The dated equipment, the improvised setup, the concrete floors. "I've worked in worse, but it's risky." "Everything's risky," Marcus mumbled. "Just fix it." "Demanding patient, my favorite." Helen opened her bag, started laying out instruments. "Nurse, I need you to assist. Can you handle that? Yes? Ever scrub in for vascular surgery?" "No." "Well, you're about to learn." Helen glanced at Adrian. "I need better light, sterile drapes, and someone to run anesthesia. Tell me you have propofol." "I have propofol." "Of course you do." Helen shook her head. Lisa, was it? You're going to step outside now. This isn't something you want to watch. I'm not leaving him. Yes, you are. Helen's voice was firm but kind. Because if you stay, you'll distract me. And if you distract me, your husband dies. So you're going to walk out that door, let these people work, and trust that I'm very, very good at what I do. Lisa looked at Marcus. He nodded weakly. I'll take care of her, Adrian said, already guiding Lisa toward the door. Come on. They left. The door closed. Suddenly, it was just Ava, Helen, and a man bleeding out on a table that was never meant for surgery. All right, Helen said, tying a surgical mask over her face. Let's get started. The next 2 hours blurred into a fog of commands and responses. Ava had assisted in surgeries before, during her clinical rotations, but this was different. No safety net, no backup team, no code blue button if things went wrong. Helen worked with terrifying precision. Her hands moved like they had their own intelligence, finding vessels, tying off bleeders, navigating anatomy that Ava could only half remember from textbooks. Suction, Helen said. Ava suctioned. Retractor, Ava retracted. More light on the field. Ava adjusted the overhead lamp. Somewhere around the 40-minute mark, Marcus's pressure dropped. Ava saw it on the portable monitor, called it out before Helen asked. I see it, Helen said calmly. He's compensating. Keep the fluids running. We don't have blood. Then he better not need blood. Helen's hands never stopped moving. There, got it. Little bastard was hiding behind the clavicle. She tied off the damaged vessel, checked her work, checked again. Bleeding's controlled, Helen announced. Now we just put him back together. The closing took another hour. Layer by layer, Helen rebuilt what the bullet had destroyed. Ava's legs went numb from standing, her shoulders locked in painful knots, but she didn't complain. Finally, Helen stepped back. Done. He'll need antibiotics, pain management, and about 6 weeks of physical therapy for that shoulder, but he'll live. Ava sagged against the counter, adrenaline draining out of her in a nauseating rush. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me if he doesn't get an infection in this glorified storage closet. Helen stripped off her gloves, studied Ava. You did well. Better than most nurses I've worked with in actual hospitals. I had a good teacher. You had instincts. That's different. Helen washed up, dried her hands. How long have you been doing this? This was my second call. Helen's eyebrows rose. Second? And you handled vascular surgery? I handled following your instructions. Still. Helen pulled her coat back on. You've got a gift, kid. Hope you're being smart about where you use it. She left before Ava could respond. Adrian slipped back in, looked at Marcus, stable now, breathing easier, and then at Ava. You okay? He asked. Ask me tomorrow. Fair enough. He moved to check the monitors himself, satisfied with what he saw. I'll stay with him tonight. You should go home. Someone needs to watch his vitals. I can watch vitals. You're not a nurse. No, but I've had enough practice to know when someone's dying. Adrian's voice was flat, factual. He's stable. You're exhausted. Go home, Ava. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she was fine, that she could stay, that leaving felt like abandonment. But her hands were shaking and her vision swam at the edges and she knew he was right. Call me if anything changes, she said. I will. Ava gathered her things, peeled off her bloody gloves, washed her hands 3 times. When she turned back, Adrian was watching her with that unsettling intensity he had, like he could see straight through skin to the panic underneath. You saved his life, Adrian said quietly. Both of you did. Helen saved his life. You kept him alive long enough for Helen to get here. That counts. Ava's throat tightened. This is what it's going to be like, isn't it? Gunshots and stabbings and people who can't go to real hospitals? Sometimes. Not sometimes. This is your world. Violence and blood and people like Marcus who have families and loved ones and deserve to live despite the choices they've made. Adrian crossed his arms. You think the ER is different? You think every patient who walks through those doors is innocent? That's not the point. Then what is the point? The point is I signed up to help people, not enable criminals. You signed up to save lives. That's what you did tonight. Adrian's voice stayed level, but something shifted behind his eyes. If you want to walk away, walk away. I meant what I said. No consequences, no pressure. But don't pretend this is about morality. It's about fear. I'm not afraid. You're terrified. I can see it. He stepped closer. But you showed up anyway. You did the work. You didn't hesitate when it mattered. So yeah, you're scared. But you're also brave enough to do it anyway. That's the only kind of courage that means anything. Ava's hands curled into fists. You don't know me well enough to say that. I know you better than you think. Stop doing that. Doing what? Acting like you can read me, like you understand what I'm thinking. I don't need to read you. Adrian's voice softened. You're an open book, Ava. Everything you feel shows on your face. Every doubt, every conviction, every moment you're at war with yourself. It's one of the things He stopped. Reset. It's why I chose you. The air between them went taut. Ava broke first. I need to go. Yeah. Adrian stepped back, hands in his pockets. Text me when you're home. You keep saying that. I keep meaning it. She left without another word, drove home through pre-dawn streets, stumbled into her apartment just as the sun started bleeding light through the blinds. Sarah was already up, making coffee in the kitchen. She took one look at Ava, and her expression shuddered. Don't ask, Ava said. Wasn't planning to. Sarah poured a second cup, slid it across the counter. But you should shower, you smell like a hospital. Ava looked down, blood on her shoes, antiseptic under her nails, the faint chemical smell of surgical gloves clinging to her skin. Yeah, she said, I should. She showered until the water ran cold, scrubbed until her skin turned red. Couldn't wash away the image of Marcus on that table, or Lisa's terrified face, or Helen's hands moving with practiced precision through tissue and blood. Couldn't wash away the way Adrian had looked at her when he said, It's why I chose you. The burner phone buzzed while she was toweling off. Marcus is stable. Wife's with him. You did good. Ava stared at the message. Should have felt relief. Should have felt satisfaction, maybe, at a job well done. Instead, she just felt tired. And something else. Something she didn't want to name but couldn't ignore. She texted back, Good, keep me updated. Then she fell into bed and didn't dream at all. The calls came more frequently after that. Once a week, sometimes twice. Never during her hospital shifts. Adrian seemed to have access to her schedule, which should have disturbed her more than it did. A broken wrist from a fight gone wrong, a pneumothorax from blunt force trauma, lacerations, contusions, one memorable case of a dislocated shoulder that the patient had tried to pop back in himself and only made worse. Ava treated them all. Learned their names when they offered, didn't ask when they didn't, kept her head down, did the work, went home and pretended this was normal. A month in, she ran into Helen again. The case was bad. A teenager, 17 maybe, with internal bleeding from a beating that had gone too far. Helen showed up within the hour, took one look at the kid, and shook her head. He needs a hospital, she said flatly. This is beyond field medicine. Can't, Adrian said from the doorway. Can't or won't. Does it matter? Helen's jaw tightened. It matters to me. This kid is dying. Then save him. I'm a surgeon, not a miracle worker. But Helen was already scrubbing in, already prepping, already doing the impossible because that's what people like her did. Ava assisted again, held retractors until her hands cramped, suctioned blood until the canister needed emptying twice, watched Helen work with the kind of focused intensity that allowed zero room for error. They lost him anyway. The kid's heart stopped at the 90-minute mark. Helen called it after 30 minutes of compressions that Ava knew were futile but couldn't stop doing because stopping meant accepting and accepting meant failing. Time of death, 3:47 a.m., Helen said quietly. Ava's hands stilled on the kid's chest, blood under her nails, sweat in her eyes, the clinical part of her brain noting the absence of pulse, the fixed pupils, the terrible stillness that meant gone. I'm sorry, she whispered. Don't be sorry. Helen stripped off her gloves. Be angry. This didn't have to happen. She left, just walked out, and Ava didn't blame her. Adrian stayed, stood in the doorway while Ava cleaned the body with gentle hands, while she covered him with a sheet, while she tried very hard not to think about the fact that this kid was someone's son, and she didn't even know his name. "What happens now?" Ava asked without looking up. "I handle it." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you." Ava finally turned to face him. "Who was he? Does it matter?" "Yes." Her voice cracked. "It matters to me." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "His name was Dante. He worked for one of my competitors. Got caught in the wrong place at the wrong time." "A competitor? You mean another—" She couldn't say the word. Didn't want to make it real. "Yes. And he died because of business. He died because someone decided his life was worth less than their pride." Adrian's expression went cold. "That person will answer for it." "Answer how?" "You don't want to know." He was right. She didn't, but she asked anyway. "Will you kill them?" "Probably." The honesty was almost worse than a lie would have been. "This is what you do," Ava said. It wasn't a question. "You hurt people, kill people, run an organization built on violence." "Yes." "And you sleep at night?" "Not well." Adrian stepped into the room, stood on the opposite side of the exam table. "But I sleep. Because the alternative is chaos. Because someone has to maintain order and I'm better at it than most. Because the people I protect matter more than the people I put down." That's a hell of a rationalization. "It's not a rationalization, it's survival." His eyes met hers across Dante's covered body. "You think I want this? You think I chose to be the person people fear? I inherited a mess and made it work. That's all." "That's not all." "No," Adrian agreed, "but it's all I'm willing to discuss tonight." Ava looked at the sheet-covered form between them. "I can't do this." "Yes, you can." "No." She shook her head. "I can't keep patching up people who are going to die anyway. I can't keep being part of this." "You're not part of this. You're separate, neutral. That's the whole point." "There's no such thing as neutral when people are dying." "Then what do you want?" Adrian's voice went sharp. "You want to quit? Fine. Quit. Walk away. But don't stand here and pretend you're not making a difference, because you are. You saved Marcus. You saved Jay. You gave a dozen other people a chance they wouldn't have had otherwise." "And Dante?" "Dante was already gone when he got here. You know that." She did. Had known it the second she saw him. But knowing didn't make it easier. "I need air," Ava said. She pushed past Adrian through the clinic out into the main warehouse floor. The space was empty now, quiet except for the hum of distant traffic. She leaned against the wall, pressed her forehead to the cool concrete, breathed. Footsteps behind her. Adrian, following at a careful distance. "I'm fine," Ava said without turning. "You're not." "I said I'm fine." "And I said you're not." Adrian stopped a few feet away. "You just lost a patient. You're allowed to not be fine." "I lose patients all the time." "Not like this." He was right. The hospital had protocols, debriefing, support systems. Here, there was just silence and the weight of a life that couldn't be saved. "Tell me something," Ava said, still facing the wall. "When you look at me, what do you see?" "What?" "You said I'm an open book, that everything I feel shows on my face. So what do you see right now?" Adrian was quiet. Then, "I see someone who cares too much in a world that doesn't care enough. I see someone trying to hold on to their principles while the ground shifts under their feet. I see someone strong enough to stand here instead of running, even though running would be smarter." Ava's throat went tight. "You see wrong." "I don't think so." She turned to face him. "I'm here because I'm selfish, because I like the rush of saving someone when the system says they're not worth saving, because it makes me feel important. If that were true, you wouldn't be torn up about Dante." "Maybe I'm torn up because I failed." "You didn't fail. He was already dying." "Then what was the point?" Ava's voice rose. "What's the point of any of this if we can't save them all?" "The point is we save the ones we can." Adrian stepped closer. "That's all anyone can do. Save the ones you can and accept that the rest are beyond your reach. That's not enough." "It has to be." They stood there in the half-dark, Two people on opposite sides of every moral line that existed, and Ava realized with horrible clarity that she was starting to understand him, starting to see the logic behind the violence, the reason in the chaos. That terrified her more than anything else. "I should go," she said. Adrian nodded. "I'll call someone to handle Dante. You don't need to be here for that." "What about his family?" "They'll be notified, taken care of." "Taken care of how?" "Financially. And they'll be told he died quickly, painlessly. That's more kindness than most get in this life." Ava wanted to argue, wanted to insist that lying to grieving families was wrong, that they deserved the truth. But she thought of all the times she'd softened reality in hospital rooms, all the small mercies disguised as omissions. Maybe Adrian wasn't so different after all. That thought followed her home, followed her through the next week, the next month, followed her through every shift at the hospital where she smiled at patients and charted vitals and pretended she wasn't living a double life. Sarah stopped asking questions, started leaving coffee out in the mornings when Ava came home late, started averting her eyes when Ava changed clothes too quickly for her to see the blood. The burner phone buzzed. Ava answered. Treated patients, learned their stories, sent them home, or watched them die. Helen became a regular presence, showing up for the complicated cases, working miracles with outdated equipment and steady hands. "You're getting good at this," Helen said one night after they'd stabilized a man with a punctured lung. "Too good." "Is that a problem?" "It is if you forget where the line is." Ava cleaned her instruments. "What line?" "The one between helping and enabling." Helen packed her bag. "I crossed it years ago. That's why I work for men like Adrian instead of hospitals. But you still have a choice. Don't waste it." She left Ava with that warning echoing in the empty clinic. Don't waste it. As if Ava hadn't already made her choice the night she walked through that warehouse door. As if there was any going back from here. The burner phone buzzed again. Ava looked at it. Looked at the exam table still stained with blood that wouldn't quite come clean. Looked at her reflection in the darkened window. Same face, same eyes, same person she'd always been. Except, not really. Not anymore. She answered the phone. "I'm on my way," Ava said. And meant it. 3 months became 4. 4 became 6. The warehouse clinic stopped feeling temporary and started feeling inevitable. Like a second skin Ava had grown into without noticing the transformation. She learned things she'd never wanted to know. How to identify entrance versus exit wounds by the burn patterns. Which antibiotics worked best when you couldn't risk a prescription trail. How to suture deep lacerations in poor lighting while someone held a flashlight that kept flickering. The exact tone of voice that made frightened men calm down enough to let her work. She learned about Adrian too, in fragments. Small pieces offered up during long nights when they were the only 2 people awake in the warehouse, waiting to see if a patient would stabilize or crash. "Why medicine?" he asked once, leaning against the wall while Ava monitored a woman with a concussion. 3 in the morning, rain hammering the roof. "My dad," Ava said without thinking, then stopped, surprised she'd answered at all. "He was a doctor. Machinist. Factory worker." She checked the woman's pupils again, satisfied with the response. "Had a heart attack when I was 16. Paramedics took 20 minutes to get to our neighborhood. By the time they arrived, it was too late." Adrian was quiet. "I thought if I learned enough, knew enough, I could fix things." Ava adjusted the woman's pillow. "Turns out you can know everything and it still doesn't matter." "It matters," Adrian said. "You just can't see it from where you're standing." She looked at him. "Is that your philosophy? Can't see the good you're doing?" "I don't do good. I do necessary. That's bleak. That's honest." He pushed off the wall. "I'm going to check the perimeter, call if she deteriorates." He did that sometimes, deflected with action when conversations went places he didn't want to follow. Ava was starting to recognize the pattern, starting to read him the way he claimed to read her. The woman with the concussion recovered. So did most of the others. The ones who didn't haunted Ava in quiet moments, their faces stacking up like unpaid debts. Dante. A woman named Rosa who'd bled out from a ruptured spleen before Helen could get there. A man whose name Ava never learned because he'd died before regaining consciousness. She started keeping a list. Names when she had them, descriptions when she didn't. Sarah found it once, left on the kitchen counter. "What is this?" Sarah held up the paper, face pale. Ava snatched it back. Nothing. That's not nothing. Those are names. Dates. Sarah's voice climbed. Jesus, Ava, what are you involved in? I can't tell you. Can't or won't? Both. Ava folded the paper, tucked it into her pocket. Please don't ask me about this. I'm your best friend. I'm asking, and I'm telling you I can't. Ava met her eyes. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Sarah stared at her for a long moment. I don't know. Can I? The question sat between them like broken glass. I'm not doing anything that hurts people, Ava said carefully. I'm helping them. That's all I can say. Helping who? People who need it. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Sarah left the kitchen without another word. They didn't speak for 2 days after that, moving around each other like strangers in their own apartment. The silence was worse than fighting. The burner phone buzzed on the third day. Ava almost didn't answer, was actually reaching to decline the call when she saw the time. 2 p.m. Adrian never called during daylight hours. She answered, What's wrong? I need you at the warehouse. Now. Adrian's voice was tight, controlled. The kind of control that meant barely holding together. I'm at work. I know. This can't wait. Something in his tone made her stomach drop. What happened? Just come. Please. He'd never said please before. Ava told the charge nurse she had a family emergency. Drove to the warehouse with her heart in her throat, every red light an eternity. When she pushed through the door, the usual guards were gone. The main floor was empty except for Adrian, pacing near the clinic entrance. Blood on his hands. Blood on his shirt. Not splattered. Soaked. Where are you hurt? Ava demanded, already moving toward him. Not me. Adrian grabbed her arm, gripped too tight. Inside! He's inside! She'd never seen him like this. Never seen the careful composure crack. His eyes were wild, unfocused, scared. Ava pulled free, pushed past him into the clinic. The man on the exam table was older than Adrian, mid-40s, dark hair going gray at the temples. He'd been shot multiple times, chest, abdomen, shoulder. Blood pooled under the table, dripped onto the floor in a rhythm that was already slowing. His breathing came in wet, rattling gasps. How long has he been like this? Ava's training took over, hands already moving to check vitals. 10 minutes. Maybe 15. Adrian appeared beside her. I called Helen, but she's not answering. Try again? Ava cut away the man's shirt. 3 entrance wounds, no visible exits. The bullets were still inside, which meant internal damage, possible organ involvement, hemorrhaging she couldn't see. This was bad. Worse than bad. Who is he? She asked, starting an IV. Adrian's jaw worked. His name is Thomas. His voice caught. He practically raised me. The admission hung in the air. Ava glanced at Adrian, saw something she'd never seen before. Raw fear. The kind that came from watching someone you loved bleed out. Okay, she said, forcing calm into her voice. Okay. I need you to focus. Keep trying, Helen, and get me whoever else you have. Everyone scattered. There was an attack, coordinated. We're trying to regroup. An attack. Multiple people down. Adrian's organization under siege and the one person he cared about dying on a table in a warehouse clinic with equipment meant for minor trauma. Not this. Then it's just me, Ava said. Help me roll him. I need to see the exit wounds. They rolled Thomas carefully, 2 exit wounds, smaller than Ava had hoped. The third bullet was still lodged somewhere inside. Blood pressure's dropping, she reported. He's going into shock. Fix it. Adrian, I can't. This is beyond. I don't care what it is. Adrian's voice broke. Fix it, please. There was that word again. Please. Stripped of authority, reduced to begging. Ava looked at Thomas, at the blood, at the monitors showing a man circling the drain, looked at Adrian standing there with his world falling apart and nothing he could do about it. I need you to listen to me, Ava said. Really listen. Those bullets need to come out. I'm not a surgeon. I can stabilize him, buy time, but without Helen or a hospital, he's going to die. Do you understand? We can't go to a hospital. Then we wait for Helen. She's not answering. Then we keep trying. Ava pushed more fluids, hung blood from Adrian's emergency supply. But you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that... Don't. Adrian's hand slammed down on the counter. Don't say it. Ava flinched but held her ground. I'm not a miracle worker. I need you to understand that. You saved Marcus. Marcus had Helen, and he wasn't shot 3 times in vital areas. Then do what you did for him. Keep Thomas alive until Helen gets here. It was a command and a plea wrapped together. Ava wanted to argue, wanted to explain that some things couldn't be fixed with determination and hope, but she looked at Adrian's face and saw the truth underneath the demand. This was the person who mattered, the one worth breaking for. All right, she said quietly. I'll do everything I can. She worked, poured herself into monitoring vitals, adjusting medications, keeping Thomas's blood pressure from bottoming out completely. Adrian stood at the head of the table, one hand on Thomas's shoulder, phone in the other hand, calling Helen over and over. 20 minutes passed. 30. Thomas's breathing got worse. His pressure kept dropping despite everything Ava did. Talk to me about him, Ava said, checking pupil response. Keep him grounded. Let him hear your voice. Thomas. Adrian's voice was rough. You remember when you taught me to shoot? I was 12. Couldn't hit the broad side of a barn. You said... He stopped, swallowed hard. You said steady hands come from a steady mind. That panic kills more people than bullets. No response from Thomas. His eyes were closed, breathing shallow. You were right, Adrian continued. About that. About a lot of things. You told me this life would cost me everything. That I'd lose pieces of myself I couldn't get back. I didn't believe you then. Adrian, Ava said softly. I believe you now. His hand tightened on Thomas's shoulder. I'm sorry I didn't listen. I'm sorry I dragged you into this mess. I'm sorry for... Stop! Ava's voice was sharp. He's not gone yet. Don't apologize like he is. Adrian fell silent. His phone rang. Helen? He answered immediately. Where are you? Ava couldn't hear the other side, but she watched Adrian's face fall. How long? A pause. We don't have 40 minutes. Another pause. Just get here as fast as you can. He ended the call. She's coming, Adrian said flatly. Traffic's bad. She's 40 minutes out, maybe 30 if she breaks every speed limit. Ava looked at the monitors. Thomas's pressure was 60 over 40 and falling. His heart rate was erratic. 40 minutes was a death sentence. We need to operate, she said. You said you're not a surgeon. I'm not, but I've assisted Helen enough to know the basics. And if we don't get that bullet out of his chest, he won't last until she arrives. You could kill him. He's dying anyway. Ava met Adrian's eyes. This way he has a chance. Small, but something. The calculation played across Adrian's face. Risk versus reward. Hope versus certainty. Do it, he said. Ava's hands shook as she scrubbed. She wasn't qualified for this, hadn't been trained for this. But Helen had walked her through enough procedures that she knew the general idea. Find the bullet. Control the bleeding. Don't panic. Steady hands from a steady mind. I need you to assist, she told Adrian. Can you do that? Yes. Have you seen surgery before? I've seen worse than surgery. Probably true. Ava laid out instruments with trembling fingers, pulled on sterile gloves, tried to remember everything Helen had shown her. The scalpel felt foreign in her hand. Wrong. She wasn't supposed to be the one cutting. If I kill him, she started. You won't. But if I do, then he died fighting. That's more than most get. Adrian positioned himself across from her, hands already gloved. Tell me what to do. Ava took a breath, then another. Then she cut. The first incision was clean, muscle and fascia separated under her blade, exposing the chest cavity. Blood welled up immediately, more than she'd expected. Suction, she said. Adrian suctioned. His hands were steady even though hers shook. Ava worked through layers, following the bullet's path. It had missed the heart. Miracle number 1. But it had clipped something in the lung, caused a bleed that was slowly drowning Thomas from the inside. There, she said, spotting the bullet lodged against a rib. I need to get that out without tearing anything else. Can you? I don't know. But she tried anyway. used forceps to grasp the bullet, applied gentle pressure. It shifted, came free with a wet sound that made her stomach turn. She dropped it into a metal tray with a clatter. Got it, Ava said. Now I need to find the bleeder. She searched, hands moving with more confidence now. Found the damaged vessel, clamped it. But when she tried to tie it off, her fingers fumbled. The angle was wrong, the space too tight. Everything Helen made look easy, suddenly impossible. I can't... Panic rose in her throat. The suture won't hold. I can't get the right tension.
Yes, you can. Adrian's voice cut through the spiral. Breathe. Reset. Try again. Ava breathed.
Reset. Tried again. This time the suture held. She worked through the other wounds with growing speed, muscle memory taking over where knowledge failed. Found the second bullet in the shoulder, easy extraction, minimal damage. The third had passed through the abdomen, but miraculously missed major organs. Ava repaired what she could, left the rest for Helen to clean up. When she finally stepped back, she was soaked in sweat and blood. Thomas's vitals were still critical but stable. Not getting worse. That had to count for something. Done? Adrian asked. For now. Ava stripped off her gloves with shaking hands. Helen will need to go back in, fix what I missed, but the immediate bleeding is controlled. Adrian stared at Thomas's chest, rising and falling in shallow rhythm. You saved him. I bought him time. That's different. It's enough. They stood there in silence, both covered in blood, surrounded by the evidence of what they'd just done. Ava felt disconnected from her body, like she was watching herself from a distance. Shock, probably. Adrenaline crash. Sit down, Adrian said, guiding her to a chair. Before you fall down. I'm fine. You're shaking. She was. Couldn't stop. Her whole body vibrated with excess energy and terror and relief all tangled together. Adrian disappeared, came back with water, made her drink it. I performed surgery? Ava said numbly. Without a license, without supervision, I could go to prison for that. You won't. You don't know that. I do. Adrian crouched in front of her, hands on her knees. Because no one's going to know. And because what you did saved a man's life. That has to mean something. It means I crossed a line I can't uncross. You crossed that line months ago. He was right. She'd been lying to herself, pretending this was temporary, that she could walk away whenever she wanted. But the truth was she'd stopped being the person who worked in hospitals and followed rules somewhere between Jay's stabbing and now. She just hadn't wanted to admit it. He matters to you, Ava said, looking at Adrian. Thomas, he's not just an employee. No? Family. Close enough. Adrian's expression was unreadable. My father died when I was young. Thomas stepped in, taught me how to survive, how to lead, how to be... He stopped. He's the reason I'm still alive. The vulnerability in those words hit Ava harder than it should have. She'd seen Adrian calm under pressure, calculated in crisis. But this was different. This was the core of him exposed. I understand, she said quietly. Do you? You'd do anything to save him. Even trust a nurse with no surgical experience to cut him open in a warehouse. Ava managed a weak smile. Yeah, I understand. Adrian studied her face. You're different than I thought you'd be. How so? Stronger. Most people would have run by now. I'm too tired to run. That's not why you're still here. No, it wasn't. Ava knew that even if she didn't want to examine it too closely. She was here because somewhere in the past 6 months, this had stopped being about money or medicine and started being about something else. About proving she could save people the system had abandoned. About mattering in a way she'd never mattered at the hospital. About Adrian, maybe. About the way he looked at her like she was capable of miracles. Helen arrived 37 minutes after Adrian's call. She took one look at Thomas, at Ava's suture work, at the bullet in the metal tray. You operated, Helen said flatly. I stabilized, Ava corrected, with a scalpel. That's operating. Helen scrubbed in, started her assessment. This is clean work, better than it should be for someone who's never done it. I had a good teacher. Apparently. Helen worked in silence for a few minutes, checking vitals, examining wounds. Finally, she straightened. He'll live. Probably. The lung repair is decent. No active bleeding. I'll monitor him overnight, but he's stable. Relief hit Ava like a physical force. Thank you. Don't thank me. You did this. Helen pulled off her gloves. And don't do it again. Next time, call me before you start cutting. There won't be a next time. You keep telling yourself that. Helen packed her equipment. I'm staying here tonight. You should go home, sleep, process whatever the hell just happened. Ava wanted to argue, wanted to stay, monitor Thomas herself, make sure her work held. But exhaustion pulled at her bones, and Helen was right. She needed distance from this. I'll check on him tomorrow, Ava said. He'll be here. Adrian walked her out. They stood by her car in the fading daylight, neither quite ready to separate. Thank you, Adrian said. I know that's inadequate, but you don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare nervous gesture. You didn't have to do that. Didn't have to risk your license, your freedom, everything. But you did anyway. He matters to you. That made him matter to me. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression, softened. You're dangerous, Ava Cole. How so? You make me think things might be different, better. He stepped closer. You make me want things I gave up on a long time ago. Ava's heart kicked against her ribs. Adrian, I know, this is complicated. We're complicated. He didn't touch her, but the space between them felt charged. But I need you to know, you're not just an employee. You haven't been for a while. Then what am I? I'm still figuring that out. The honesty in his voice undid something in Ava's chest. She should have stepped back, should have drawn a line, re-established boundaries that had been blurring for months. Instead, she said, Me too. They stood there as the sun set behind the warehouse, two people who'd started as strangers and become something neither of them knew how to name. The moment stretched, fragile and dangerous. Ava broke first. I should go. Yeah. Adrian stepped back, hands in his pockets. Drive safe. She did. Drove home in a daze, walked into her apartment to find Sarah waiting in the living room. We need to talk, Sarah said. Ava's stomach dropped. Now's not a good time. It never is. Sarah stood. I'm moving out. The words hit like a slap. What? I found a place. Closer to work. I'm leaving at the end of the month. Because of me. Because I can't watch you destroy yourself. Sarah's eyes were red. I don't know what you're doing, Ava. I don't know who you're involved with or what kind of trouble you're in, but I can't be part of it. I can't sit here and pretend everything's fine when it's clearly not. Sarah, I care about you. You're my best friend, but I can't help you if you won't let me in. Sarah grabbed her keys. I'm staying at my boyfriend's tonight. We'll figure out logistics later. She left. The door closed with a soft click that felt louder than a slam. Ava stood alone in the apartment, blood still under her nails despite washing. The memory of Thomas's chest under her hands, the bullet clicking into the tray, Adrian's voice breaking on the word please. She should have felt devastated about Sarah, should have been panicking about losing her best friend, her roommate, the one person who'd been constant through everything. Instead, she felt numb, hollow, like she'd used up all her emotions in the warehouse and had nothing left. The burner phone buzzed. Thomas is stable, resting. You should rest too. Ava stared at the message, typed and deleted 3 different responses, finally settled on, glad he's okay. Let me know if anything changes. Adrian's reply came immediately. I will. And Ava, what you did today, I won't forget it. She put the phone down, looked around the empty apartment, wondered when her life had become unrecognizable, when she'd stepped so far outside herself that going back wasn't an option anymore. The answer was obvious. It had started in a car during a rainstorm, with gray eyes and a calm voice and a choice that hadn't felt like a choice at all. Everything since then had been inevitable. Ava showered until the water ran cold, fell into bed still damp, didn't sleep so much as drift in and out of consciousness, images bleeding together. Thomas on the table, Dante's covered body, Marcus and Jay and Rosa and all the others, Adrian's hand on her knee, his voice saying, You're dangerous. When morning came, she called in sick to the hospital. First time in 6 years. Lay in bed instead, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out who she was now that everything had changed. The burner phone buzzed around noon. Thomas wants to see you. Ava closed her eyes. Should have said no. Should have maintained distance, kept it professional, remembered this was just a job. She texted back, on my way. Because it wasn't just a job. Hadn't been for months. Maybe never was. And that was the most dangerous truth of all. Thomas was awake when Ava arrived. Propped up on pillows in a back room she hadn't known existed, monitors beeping steadily beside him. His face was gray, pain etched around his eyes, but alive. Conscious. A miracle wrapped in bandages and IV lines. Adrian sat in a chair by the bed, looking like he hadn't slept. He stood when Ava entered. I'll give you two some privacy, he said. Stay, Thomas rasped. His voice was rough, damaged. Want you both here. Adrian settled back into the chair. Ava approached the bed slowly, checking the monitors out of habit. Heart rate elevated but stable. Blood pressure acceptable. No signs of infection yet. How do you feel? She asked. Like I got shot 3 times. Thomas managed a weak smile. But alive. Thanks to you. Dr. Shaw did the real work. Helen told me what happened, said you operated when I was circling the drain. Thomas's gaze was sharp despite the pain. That true? Ava glanced at Adrian, then back. I stabilized you, removed 1 bullet, controlled the bleeding. Helen handled the rest. She said you saved my life. I did what I could. No. Thomas shifted, winced. You did what most surgeons wouldn't attempt. In a warehouse, with equipment from the last century. That's not what you could. That's extraordinary. The praise sat uncomfortably. Ava had spent the last 12 hours convincing herself she'd gotten lucky. That skill had nothing to do with Thomas surviving. Hearing it laid out like that made it real in a way she wasn't ready for. I'm glad you're okay, she said simply. Me too. Thomas studied her. Adrian told me about you, about what you've been doing here, but he undersold it. You're not just good at this, you're committed. I'm a nurse. It's my job. This isn't nursing. This is something else. Thomas looked at Adrian. You picked well. Something passed between them. A conversation Ava wasn't privy to, conducted in glances and silent understanding. Rest, Ava said, uncomfortable with the scrutiny. You need sleep. I need answers first. Thomas's voice was weaker now, but determined. The attack. Where do we stand? Not now, Adrian said firmly. You nearly died yesterday. Which is why we need to talk. They came for me specifically, Adrian. That means they know. I said not now. Adrian's tone left no room for argument. We'll handle it. You focus on healing. Thomas looked like he wanted to fight. Instead, he sagged back against the pillows, exhausted. Fine. But we talk soon. Soon, Adrian agreed. Ava checked Thomas's vitals one more time, adjusted his pain medication. I'll come back tonight, make sure everything's holding. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. She met his eyes. You're my patient now. That means I don't stop caring until you're healed. Thomas's expression softened. I can see why he trusts you. The words landed heavier than they should have. Ava didn't know how to respond, so she didn't, just nodded and left the room, Adrian following close behind. They walked through the warehouse in silence. Outside, afternoon sun cut harsh shadows across the parking lot. Ava's car sat alone near the entrance, a reminder that she'd driven here instead of running the other direction like any sane person would. He likes you, Adrian said. He doesn't know me. He knows enough. Adrian stopped by her car. Thomas is a good judge of character. If he trusts you, that means something. Or it means he's grateful I kept him from bleeding out. It's more than that. Adrian leaned against her car, arms crossed. In daylight, he looked different, younger somehow, worn down by exhaustion and fear that hadn't quite faded. He asked me if you knew. Knew what? What you're part of, really part of. Adrian's gray eyes met hers. I told him you understood enough. Was I right? Ava thought about that, about the past 6 months of calls in the middle of the night, patients with injuries they couldn't explain. blood money deposited into an account she'd opened specifically for this purpose, about operating on a man she'd never met because Adrian had said please. I don't know what I understand anymore, she said honestly. 6 months ago I had rules, lines I wouldn't cross. Now I'm performing surgery in warehouses and lying to my best friend about where I spend my nights. Do you regret it? I should. That's not what I asked. Ava looked at him, really looked, saw the careful control starting to crack, the exhaustion he was trying to hide, the fear that still lingered from thinking he'd lose Thomas. No, she said, I don't regret it, and that scares me more than anything else. Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then, want to know something that scares me? What? How much I've come to rely on you. He said it simply, like admitting to a tactical weakness. I have people, loyal people, but none of them look at me the way you do. How do I look at you? Like I'm human, not a boss, not a threat, just... He stopped, searching for words. Just someone who might be worth saving. Ava's breath caught. Adrian, I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I know this is complicated. I know I've dragged you into something dangerous, but I need you to understand, you matter, not just as a nurse, as yourself. The honesty in his voice was almost painful. Ava had spent months keeping distance, maintaining professional boundaries that grew thinner with each call. Now those boundaries felt laughable, dissolved by shared trauma and 3 a.m. conversations and the way he looked at her like she'd hung the moon. This is a bad idea, she said. Probably. You're a criminal. I'm supposed to be one of the good guys. Are those things mutually exclusive? In most moral frameworks, yes. Adrian smiled despite everything. Good thing we threw out the framework months ago. He was right. Ava had abandoned conventional morality somewhere between treating gunshot wounds and learning to recognize the sound of someone dying. She'd crossed into gray territory and made it home. What happens now? She asked. I don't know. Adrian pushed off her car. But I know I want you safe. The people who went after Thomas, they're escalating, making moves that put everyone close to me at risk, including me, especially you. His jaw tightened. They don't know who you are yet, but if they figure it out, then what? You cut me loose? Then I make sure they never get close enough to hurt you. The protective edge in his voice sent heat through Ava's chest. Dangerous heat, the kind that made smart people do stupid things. I can take care of myself, she said. I know, but you shouldn't have to. Adrian stepped closer, not touching, but close enough that she could feel his presence like static. Let me protect you, Ava. It's the least I can do. She should have said no. Should have insisted on independence, on maintaining the illusion that this was just professional. Instead, she said, okay? Relief flickered across his face. Okay. They stood there in the parking lot, sunlight and shadows, and the weight of admissions neither of them were quite ready to examine. Ava's phone buzzed, her real phone, not the burner. She glanced at it. The hospital, probably wondering when she'd be back. I need to go, she said. When will I see you? Tonight, to check on Thomas. And after that? I don't know. Ava opened her car door. This thing between us, whatever it is, it can't happen. You know that, right? I know. I'm serious, Adrian. You live in a world I don't understand. A world that gets people killed. I can patch them up after, but I can't be part of the reason they're hurt in the first place. You're not. If someone finds out about us, I become leverage, a weakness. You said it yourself. They'll come for me to get to you. Adrian's expression went hard. I won't let that happen. You can't promise that. Watch me. He said it with such certainty that Ava almost believed him. Almost. She got in her car without another word, drove away watching him shrink in the rearview mirror, standing alone in that parking lot like a man carved from stone. The hospital felt surreal after the warehouse. Too bright, too clean, too full of people who'd never had to choose between legal and right. Ava moved through her shift on autopilot, smiling at patients, charting vitals, pretending yesterday hadn't happened. Marcus pulled her aside during a lull. You look like hell. Thanks.
I'm serious. When's the last time you slept? Ava tried to remember. I don't know, 2 days ago? Go home. I'm fine. You're swaying on your feet. Marcus steered her toward the break room. Sit. Drink water. I'm covering the rest of your shift. Marcus. That's not a suggestion, Cole. You're useless like this. Go home. Sleep. Come back tomorrow, human. She was too tired to argue, gathered her things, drove to an apartment that felt emptier without Sarah's presence.
The lease was in both their names. They'd have to figure that out. Add it to the growing list of complications Ava didn't have energy to address. She slept for 14 hours, woke disoriented in darkness, burner phone buzzing insistently on the nightstand. 3 missed calls from Adrian. 2 texts. Thomas spiked a fever. Helen's monitoring but wanted you to know. Call when you wake up. Ava dialed immediately. Adrian answered on the first ring. How high? She asked without preamble. 102. Helen's got him on antibiotics, but she's worried about infection in the chest cavity. I'm coming. You don't have to. I operated on him, Adrian. If there's an infection, I need to see it. Ava was already pulling on clothes. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She made it in 15. Helen was in the back room with Thomas, who looked worse than he had that morning. Flushed, sweating, breathing labored. The monitor showed an elevated heart rate, the fever Adrian had mentioned. Talk to me, Ava said. Helen didn't look up from checking the surgical site. Possible abscess formation. The tissue's inflamed, some purulent drainage. I've started broad-spectrum antibiotics, but we might need to go back in, drain it properly. Tonight? If the fever doesn't break in the next few hours, yes. Ava scrubbed in, examined the wound herself. Helen was right. Classic signs of infection. The sutures were holding, but something underneath wasn't healing properly. This is my fault, Ava said quietly. I missed something during the initial surgery. You stabilized a dying man with minimal equipment and no surgical training. Helen's voice was sharp. Don't make this about fault. Infections happen. We deal with them. But if you'd been more careful, he'd be dead because you would have taken too long. Helen met her eyes. You made the right calls under impossible circumstances. Now we adapt. That's medicine. Adrian appeared in the doorway. What do you need? Pray his fever breaks, Helen said. And if it doesn't, prep for another surgery in 4 hours. The fever didn't break. At 2 a.m., they wheeled Thomas back to the clinic. Helen operated while Ava assisted, both of them functioning on caffeine and muscle memory. They found the abscess, drained it, cleaned out infected tissue, left a drain in place. This should do it, Helen said, closing. But he needs 24-hour monitoring. Someone needs to stay with him. I will, Ava said. You need sleep. I'll sleep when he's stable. Helen looked at her, then at Adrian standing silent in the corner. Something passed across her face. Understanding maybe, or resignation. Fine, Helen said. But if his fever spikes again, you call me immediately. No heroics. No heroics, Ava agreed. Helen left. Adrian stayed. They set up a rotation, Ava monitoring Thomas while Adrian handled phone calls, coordinating responses to the attack that had started all this. Every hour, Adrian would check in, bring coffee, sit with her while she recorded vitals. Around 4 a.m., Thomas's fever finally started dropping. By 6 a.m., he was resting comfortably, infection controlled, crisis averted. Ava slumped in the chair by his bed, exhaustion crashing over her like a wave. You should go home, Adrian said from the doorway. Soon. Ava? I said soon. She didn't have the energy to move. Just let me sit here for a minute. Adrian crossed the room, crouched beside her chair. You saved him. Again. You know that, right? We both did. No, this was you. His hand covered hers on the armrest. I don't know what I would have done if... He stopped, swallowed. Thank you. His hand was warm, solid. Ava should have pulled away, maintained distance, remembered all the reasons this was dangerous. Instead, she turned her hand over, laced her fingers through his. You're welcome, she said quietly. They sat like that as dawn broke outside, 2 people holding on to each other in the aftermath of crisis. It felt natural in a way nothing else had in months. Right,
despite being catastrophically wrong. I need to tell you something, Adrian said. Ava looked at him. What? The people who attacked us, they're not going to stop. This was a message, a declaration of intent. His grip tightened on her hand. Things are going to get worse before they get better. How much worse? I don't know. But bad enough that I need you to consider stepping back, taking a break from the clinic until this settles. No. Ava, I said no. She met his eyes. You don't get to pull me into this world and then push me out when it gets dangerous. I'm in, all the way. You don't make that choice for me. I'm trying to keep you safe. Then teach me how to protect myself. Give me security, a panic button, whatever you think I need, but don't sideline me. Ava's voice was fierce. These people, your people, they need medical care, and I'm good at providing it. That doesn't change because someone decided to start a war. Adrian studied her face. You're serious. Completely. You understand what you're saying? If you stay, you become a target. Not might become, will become. The second they figure out you matter to me, they'll come for you. Well, then make sure they don't figure it out. Ava, I'm not leaving, Adrian. She squeezed his hand. I'm not built that way. You should know that by now. Something shifted in his expression, resignation mixed with what might have been pride. You're going to be the death of me. Probably. Ava managed a tired smile. But not today. Not today, he agreed. Thomas stirred in the bed. His eyes opened, focused on them sitting there hand in hand. About time, he rasped. They both startled. Ava tried to pull her hand back, but Adrian held on. You're awake, Adrian said. Hard to sleep with you two carrying on. Thomas's voice was weak but amused. How long you been dancing around this? We're not... Ava started. Yes, you are. Thomas shifted carefully. I've known this kid since he was 12. Never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Adrian's jaw tightened. Thomas, what? I'm dying. Might as well speak my mind. Thomas coughed, grimaced. Okay, not dying, but close enough to have opinions. You're not dying, Ava said firmly. Your fever broke, the infection's controlled. You're going to be fine. See? She's got the bossy thing down already. Perfect fit. Thomas closed his eyes. Just do me a favor and don't waste time being stupid about it. Life's too short for stupid. He drifted back to sleep, leaving Ava and Adrian sitting in charged silence. He's delirious, Ava said finally. He's lucid as they come. Adrian, he's right. Adrian stood, pulled her up with him. We've been dancing around this for months, and I'm tired of pretending I don't... He stopped, reset. I care about you, Ava, more than I should, more than is smart or safe or any of the things that would make sense. Ava's heart hammered. This can't happen. I know. I'm serious. The moment we cross that line, everything changes. I know. Adrian stepped closer. But maybe it already has. Maybe we crossed it a long time ago and just didn't want to admit it. He was right. Ava could pinpoint a dozen moments when this had stopped being professional. When she'd started looking forward to his texts. When his approval had started mattering more than it should. When the thought of him hurt had made her willing to break every rule she had. I don't know how to do this, she said. Neither do I. You could get me killed. I won't let that happen. You can't promise that. Then I'll die trying. He said it simply. Fact, not bravado. You're worth dying for, Ava Cole. You're worth everything. The words hung between them. Too big, too honest, too terrifying to fully process. Ava made a choice. She closed the distance between them, rose on her toes, and kissed him. For a second, Adrian went still, shocked, maybe. Then his hands came up to frame her face, gentle, despite the violence she knew they were capable of, and he kissed her back like she was air and he'd been drowning. It was soft and desperate and nothing like Ava had imagined during the moment she'd let herself imagine it. His mouth was warm, his hands steady, and when he pulled back just enough to breathe, she saw something in his eyes that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Wonder. Like she'd just given him something he'd stopped believing in. That was stupid, Ava whispered against his mouth. Monumentally. We can't do this. Probably not. I'm serious, Adrian. I know. He kissed her again, brief and sweet. But for right now, can we just be stupid? Yeah. Ava laughed despite everything. Okay, we can be stupid, just for right now. They stayed like that, foreheads pressed together, breathing the same air. Behind them, Thomas slept on, monitors beeping steadily. Outside the warehouse, dawn was breaking over a city that had no idea what happened in the shadows. And for the first time in months, Ava let herself feel something other than fear and exhaustion. She felt hope. Dangerous. Impossible. Probably doomed hope. But hope nonetheless. I should go, she said eventually, before I fall asleep standing up. Yeah. Adrian stepped back reluctantly. I'll walk you out. They moved through the warehouse in silence, but it was different now, charged with possibility and terror, and the knowledge that they'd just jumped off a cliff together. At her car, Adrian caught her hand. Be careful going home. Always am. I mean it, Ava. Until we know who's behind the attacks. I'll be careful. She squeezed his hand. You be careful, too. I'm always careful. Liar. But she smiled when she said it. She drove home as the city woke up around her. Exhausted, terrified, exhilarated. Knowing she'd just made the worst decision of her life. Knowing she'd make it again in a heartbeat. The apartment was still empty when she got there. Sarah's room cleared out, boxes stacked by the door. A reminder that choices had consequences, that Ava's double life had cost her already. She wondered what else it would cost before this was over. The burner phone buzzed. Get some sleep. I'll call if anything changes with Thomas. And Ava? I meant what I said. All of it. Ava read the message 3 times, saved it even though she knew she shouldn't. Fell into bed with her phone clutched in one hand like a lifeline. She dreamed of gray eyes and steady hands and the way Adrian had looked at her like she mattered. When she woke, everything had changed. Because the war Thomas had warned about, it had just found her. The break-in happened while Ava was at the hospital. She came home to a door that hung crooked on its hinges, lock shattered. Everything inside her apartment turned over like someone had taken a blender to her life. Couch cushions gutted, books scattered across the floor, her bedroom ransacked, mattress slashed, clothes pulled from drawers and dumped in heaps. They'd been looking for something, and they'd made sure she knew they'd been there. Ava stood in the doorway, phone already in her hand. Not 911. She'd learned that much. The burner. Adrian answered before the first ring finished. My apartment, she said, voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. Someone broke in. Are you there now? Standing in the doorway. Get out. His voice went sharp. Right now, Ava. Don't touch anything. Don't go inside. Get to your car and drive to the warehouse. Adrian? Now. She went. Backed out of her apartment, left the door hanging open, got in her car with hands that only shook a little. Made it 3 blocks before the reality hit, and she had to pull over, press her forehead against the steering wheel, breathe through the panic. Someone had been in her home, had touched her things, violated her space, sent a message she understood perfectly. We know who you are. We know where you live. You're not safe. The burner phone rang. I'm okay, Ava said before Adrian could ask. Where are you? Couple blocks away. I needed a minute. Take your time. I've got people heading to your place now. They'll secure it, make sure no one's waiting. Waiting for what? For you to come back. Adrian's voice was controlled, but she could hear the fury underneath. This is a message, Ava. They're telling us they can reach you whenever they want. Then the message worked. I'm terrified. Good. Fear keeps you smart. A pause. Can you drive? Yeah. Then come here. We need to talk. Ava drove to the warehouse on autopilot, mind spinning through implications. They knew about her, knew she mattered to Adrian, which meant everything he'd warned her about was coming true faster than either of them had anticipated. Adrian was waiting in the parking lot when she arrived. He pulled her car door open before she'd fully stopped, hands on her shoulders, eyes scanning her face. You're sure you're okay? He asked. I'm fine. Scared, but fine. Did you see anyone? Notice anything suspicious before you left this morning? No. Everything was normal. Adrian's jaw tightened.
He pulled her into an embrace that felt more like armor than comfort, his arms locked around her like he could physically shield her from what was coming. "I'm sorry," he said into her hair. I knew this was a possibility and I let you stay exposed. This isn't your fault." "Yes, it is." He pulled back enough to look at her. "Everything that happens to you because of me is my fault. That's how this works." They went inside. Thomas was up, still weak but mobile, sitting at a makeshift table with maps and papers spread out. He looked up when they entered. "She okay?" he asked Adrian. "Shaken, not hurt." "Good." Thomas gestured to a chair. "Sit, kid. We need to fill you in." Ava sat. Adrian stayed standing, pacing like a caged animal. "The people who came after me," Thomas began, "they're part of a larger move. 3 families trying to consolidate power, push Adrian out, take over his territories." "Families?" Ava repeated. "Organizations, crime families, if you want to be technical about it." Thomas pushed one of the maps toward her. "Adrian runs the north and east sectors. These people want it all. And they're willing to burn everything to get it. Why now?" "Because I'm vulnerable." Adrian stopped pacing. "I've been consolidating legitimate businesses, trying to move away from the violence. They see it as weakness." "Is it? Strategically? Maybe? Morally?" He met her eyes. "I was trying to build something different, something that didn't require quite so much blood." The admission landed heavy. Ava thought about all the patients she'd treated, the lives saved in that warehouse clinic. Adrian's attempt at redemption, maybe, or at least harm reduction. "What do they want?" she asked. "Everything I have, or my head, whichever comes first." Adrian's voice was flat. "And they're going after anyone close to me to make it happen. Thomas was the warning. Your apartment is the escalation." "So what do we do?" "We?" Adrian shook his head. "There's no we in this, Ava. This is my war. You're getting out." "No, that's not a request. And I'm not asking permission." Ava stood. "You don't get to make this choice for me. They already know about me. Running doesn't change that. It keeps you alive." "Maybe. Or maybe it makes me an easier target. At least here I have protection." "Protection that failed." Adrian's voice rose. "They got to your apartment, Ava, while I had people watching. That means they're better than I thought, or I have a leak, or both. Either way, you're not safe." "I haven't been safe since I fell asleep in your car 7 months ago." Ava crossed her arms. "We're past safe. Now we're just choosing how we handle unsafe." Thomas made a sound that might have been a laugh. "She's got a point." "Stay out of this," Adrian snapped. "Can't. I'm already in it." Thomas leaned back carefully. "And so is she. Question is whether you accept that or waste time fighting it." Adrian looked between them, frustration written across every line of his body. "You're both insane." "Probably," Ava agreed, "but I'm not leaving, so tell me what the plan is." He stared at her for a long moment. Then something in him seemed to break, or maybe just accept the inevitable. "Fine," Adrian said. "But you follow my rules. No arguments, no exceptions." "What rules?" "You don't go anywhere alone. You stay at a safe house I control. You check in every 4 hours, and if I tell you to run, you run. No questions, no hesitation." "Okay." "I'm serious, Ava." "I said okay." She stepped closer to him. "I'll follow your rules. Just don't ask me to abandon you when things get hard." Adrian's hand came up, cupped her face. "You should abandon me. That would be the smart thing." "When have I ever been smart about you?" "Never." He kissed her forehead. "That's what scares me." They spent the next hour making plans. Adrian had safe houses scattered across the city, apartments registered to shell companies, homes that existed off any official record. He chose one in a quiet neighborhood, hired guards Ava didn't see but knew were there. "Pack light," he told her. "We'll get you anything you need, but I want you mobile, ready to move if things go wrong." "How wrong are we expecting things to go?" "Scale of 1 to 10? 12. Not reassuring. But Ava had stopped expecting reassurance months ago. She went back to her apartment with 2 of Adrian's people, silent men who swept the space professionally, checking for bugs, cameras, anything that might have been left behind. They found 3 listening devices, small, sophisticated, planted in her bedroom, kitchen, and living room. How long have these been here? Ava asked. One of the men examined them. Days, maybe weeks, hard to say. Which meant they'd been listening for a while. Had heard her conversations with Sarah, her phone calls, everything. Ava felt violated all over again, skin crawling at the thought of strangers monitoring her life. She packed quickly. Clothes, toiletries, the essentials. Left behind everything that felt too permanent, too much like admitting she might not come back. The safe house was nicer than her apartment. Third floor of a converted brownstone, hardwood floors, furniture that actually matched, a place designed for hiding people who mattered. You'll be safe here, Adrian said, checking the locks himself. I've got people on every entrance. No one gets in without me knowing. What about you? What about me? Where will you be? Handling this? Adrian set her bag down by the bedroom door. I can't be here, Ava. If they're watching me, leading them to you defeats the purpose. So I just wait? Sit here while you're out there doing what exactly? What I have to. The evasion stung. Don't do that. Don't shut me out. I'm not shutting you out. I'm keeping you alive. By keeping me in the dark? By keeping you separate from the violence. Adrian's voice was strained. You wanted to stay involved, fine. But that doesn't mean you get to be on the front lines. I won't. He stopped, reset. I can't lose you. Not like this. Ava saw the fear beneath his control. The same fear she felt every time the burner phone rang with news of another patient, another crisis, another person broken by this world he inhabited. Okay, she said quietly. I'll stay here. I'll wait. But you promised me something. What? You come back. Whatever you have to do out there, you come back alive. I promise.
Say it like you mean it. I promise, Ava. He pulled her close. I'm not going anywhere without you. That's not how this ends. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that promises meant something in a world built on betrayal and violence. But she'd seen too many people die on tables in that warehouse to believe in guarantees. Still, she held on to him like he was the only solid thing in a shifting world. And for a moment, standing in that safe house with danger circling closer, it felt almost like enough. Adrian left after dark. Ava watched from the window as he climbed into an SUV with tinted windows, watched it disappear into traffic. Then she was alone with guards she couldn't see and thought she couldn't silence. The first night was the hardest. Every sound made her jump. Every creak of the building settling, every car passing outside. She checked her phone obsessively, both phones, waiting for news that didn't come. Around midnight, the burner buzzed. Still awake? Can't sleep. Me neither. Miss you. The admission made her chest tight. Miss you too. This will be over soon, I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep. I don't. Ava stared at the message. Wanted to ask what he was doing, where he was, if he was safe. Wanted to demand details he wouldn't give. Instead, she typed, be careful. Always. She didn't sleep that night, or the next, existed in a fog of exhaustion and anxiety, jumping every time the phone rang, which was often, Adrian checking in, Helen calling with updates on patients, Thomas recovering enough to send gruff messages telling her to eat something. On the third day, Adrian showed up at the safe house himself. He looked worse than she felt, shadows under his eyes, jaw tight with tension, moving like every muscle hurt. What happened? Ava demanded. We found the leak. One of my people was feeding information to the families. Adrian slumped onto the couch. He's been handled. Ava didn't ask what handled meant. Didn't want to know. Is it over? The leak is, the war isn't. He rubbed his face. They hit 2 of my businesses last night. Sent a message that they're not backing down. So what do? I hit back. Harder. Adrian looked at her. This is what you signed up for, Ava. This is what my world looks like. Still think you want to be part of it? I'm already part of it. You could leave, disappear. I'd help you. New identity, new city, enough money to start over. Is that what you want? What I want doesn't matter. What's safe for you matters. Ava sat beside him on the couch, took his hand, laced their fingers together. I'm not running, I told you that. Even if staying gets you killed? Even then. She squeezed his hand. I've spent my whole life playing it safe, following rules, being the good girl who never caused problems. And you know what? I was miserable, saving one patient at a time in a system designed to let people die. And this is better? This is real. Messy and dangerous and probably going to end badly, but real. I matter here. What I do matters. The people I save actually stay saved because you protect them. Ava turned to face him fully. I'm not giving that up. I'm not giving you up. Adrian's eyes were storm gray in the dim light. You're going to break my heart, Ava Cole. Probably. She leaned in, kissed him soft and careful. But not today. They stayed like that, tangled together on the couch, holding on to something fragile and impossible. Outside, the war continued. Inside, they built something that felt like hope. It couldn't last. Ava knew that, but for a few stolen hours, she let herself believe otherwise. The call came 4 days later, 3 a.m., both of them asleep in the safe house, Adrian having stayed despite the risk, because separating felt worse than the danger. His phone rang. He answered, listened, went very still. Where? He asked. Then, I'm on my way. He was up and dressed before Ava fully woke. What's wrong? She asked. They took Marcus. The words hit like ice water. Marcus, the ER doc who'd covered her shifts, who told her to go home and sleep, who had nothing to do with any of this. Why? Ava demanded. Because they know we're friends. Because they're escalating. Adrian's voice was cold, controlled. The voice of someone making calculated decisions about violence. I'm getting him back. I'm coming with you. No. Adrian, I said no. He grabbed his jacket. This is exactly what I was afraid of. They're going after everyone close to me. If you come, you put yourself in their crosshairs. I'm already in their crosshairs. They ransacked my apartment, remember? Which is why you're staying here where you're protected. Adrian cupped her face. Please, Ava, let me handle this. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist on being there, being useful, being anything other than helpless. But she saw the fear in his eyes and understood. This was how he protected her, by keeping her separate from the worst of it. Bring him back, she said. I will. Bring yourself back too. I promise. He kissed her hard and desperate. Then he was gone. Ava spent the next 6 hours pacing the safe house like a caged animal. She called the hospital, learned Marcus hadn't shown up for his shift, called Sarah, who didn't answer, called Helen, who told her to stay put and stay calm in a voice that suggested she was neither. The burner phone stayed silent. At 9 a.m., it finally rang. Adrian's number. Ava answered before the first ring finished. Tell me, she said. We got him. He's hurt but alive, bringing him to the warehouse now. Relief made her legs weak. How bad? Bad enough that I need you there. Can you come? On my way. She was at the warehouse in 20 minutes, breaking every speed limit. Marcus was already on the exam table when she arrived, unconscious, blood everywhere. Helen was scrubbing in, Adrian standing beside her looking like he'd aged 10 years. What happened? Ava asked, pulling on gloves. They worked him over pretty good. Helen's voice was clinical, but her hand shook. Broken ribs, possible internal bleeding, head trauma. He needs a hospital, Ava. Can't risk it. They might have people watching. Then we work with what we have. Helen handed her instruments. Like always. They operated for 3 hours, found internal bleeding, repaired it, set the broken ribs as best they could. Managed the head trauma with medication and prayer because there was nothing else. When they finally finished, Marcus was stable but critical. He needs to be monitored constantly, Helen said. Any change, any decline, he goes to a hospital. I don't care about the risk. Agreed, Adrian said. Ava stayed with Marcus while Helen cleaned up. Adrian disappeared to handle things she didn't ask about. When he came back, there was blood on his knuckles he hadn't bothered washing off. Is it done? Ava asked quietly. For now. Adrian looked at Marcus, jaw tight. This is my fault. I brought him into this by association. No, they brought him into this by being monsters. Same thing. It's not. Ava stood cross to him. You didn't ask for this war. You're just trying to survive it. Survival requires making hard choices. I know. She did know. Had learned it in this warehouse, treating people who existed in moral gray zones. What did you do? What I had to. The evasion again.
Ava let it go because she understood some truths were better left unspoken. Instead, she took his damaged hand, cleaned the blood off gently, wrapped his knuckles in gauze.
Thank you, she said, for getting him back.
He's your friend. That makes him worth saving. They stayed with Marcus through the night. By morning, he was conscious, groggy, but aware. He looked at Ava, then at Adrian, then back at Ava.
So, Marcus rasped,
this is what you've been doing on your nights off. Ava managed a weak laugh. Something like that. Could have just said you had a boyfriend. Didn't have to get me kidnapped to make it dramatic. Noted for next time. Marcus tried to smile. Winced instead. They wanted information about you, about Adrian. I didn't tell them anything. We know, Adrian said. You did good, Marcus. Did stupid, you mean. Should have talked. Saved myself the beating. But you didn't. That takes courage. Takes stubbornness. I'm very stubborn.
Marcus looked at Ava.
You know what you're doing here?
No idea.
Good. Honesty. I like that. He closed his eyes. Going to sleep now. Try not to let anyone else kidnap me. We'll do our best, Ava promised. Marcus recovered over the next week. Helen monitored him carefully, eventually cleared him to go home with strict instructions and enough medication to stock a pharmacy. Adrian made sure he had protection, people watching his apartment, his route to work, every vulnerable point. I can't live like this forever, Marcus said when Adrian explained the security measures. You won't have to, Adrian promised. This ends soon. He was right, but not in the way any of them expected. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Ava was at the warehouse checking on a patient, minor laceration, routine work, when Adrian burst through the door. We need to talk, he said. Something in his voice made her stomach drop. What happened? Not here. He looked at the patient. You're done here. Go! The man left quickly. Ava stripped off her gloves. Adrian, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. He paced the small clinic. They made another move, went after one of my distribution centers, killed 3 people, left a message that they're coming for everyone I care about until I surrender. You can't surrender? I know, but I can't keep fighting like this either. Every move I make, they counter. Every person I protect becomes a target. He stopped pacing, looked at her. I have to end this, permanently. What does that mean? It means I meet with them, face to face, negotiate terms, or... He didn't finish. Or what? Or eliminate the threat entirely. Elimination. Such a clinical word for what Ava knew it really meant. Kill or be killed. The old way, the brutal way, the way Adrian had been trying to move away from. There has to be another option, she said. There isn't. I've tried everything else. This is what it comes down to. Adrian crossed to her. Which is why I need you to leave. Tonight. I've got everything arranged. New identity, new city, enough money to start over somewhere safe. No. Ava, I said no. Her voice was fierce. I'm not running while you walk into whatever suicide mission you're planning. It's not a suicide mission. It's strategic. It's dangerous and stupid, and I won't let you do it alone. You don't have a choice. Yes, I do. Same choice I've been making for 7 months. Ava grabbed his jacket. I choose you. I choose this. I choose to stay and fight instead of running like a coward. Staying isn't brave. It's suicidal. Then we're both suicidal. She pulled him close. I'm not leaving you, Adrian. Not now. Not ever. So either accept that or waste time arguing, but the answer's not changing. Adrian looked at her like he was memorizing her face. You're going to get yourself killed. Maybe, but I'll be with you when it happens. That's not comforting. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be true. He kissed her then, hard and desperate and full of things he couldn't say. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. I love you, Adrian said. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, if it's fair to you or smart or any of the things it should be. But I love you, Ava Cole, and that's the only thing I'm certain of anymore. Ava's breath caught. She'd known, had felt it in the way he looked at her, protected her, trusted her with pieces of himself he showed no one else.
But hearing it out loud made it real in a way she wasn't prepared for. I love you too, she said, which is why I'm staying, because love means being there for the hard parts, not just the easy ones. There haven't been any easy parts. No, but we're still here. She kissed him soft and careful. And we're going to stay here, together. Whatever comes next.
Adrian held her like she was the only thing keeping him grounded. Maybe she was. Maybe they both were. Two people who'd found each other in the worst possible circumstances and somehow made it work anyway. The meeting's tomorrow night, Adrian said. Neutral ground, both sides armed, no guarantee anyone walks away. Then we make sure you walk away. We? You think I'm letting you go alone? Ava pulled back to look at him. I'm a nurse. Neutral party. I can be there as medical support. No one will question it. It's too dangerous. Everything's dangerous. This way I'm there if you need me. Adrian wanted to argue. Ava could see it in his face, but he also saw the determination in hers and knew this was a fight he'd already lost. Fine, he said, but you stay back. You don't engage. You don't interfere. If things go wrong, you run. Promise me. I promise. Say it like you mean it. I promise, Adrian. She squeezed his hand. But things aren't going wrong. We're ending this. Together. They spent that night making plans. Thomas, recovered enough to be useful, helped coordinate. Helen was brought in as backup medical. Adrian's most trusted people were positioned strategically, and Ava prepared herself for the possibility that tomorrow night might be the last night she had. The meeting location was an abandoned industrial complex on the waterfront, neutral ground both sides had agreed to, enough space that no one could claim ambush, enough isolation that casualties wouldn't draw attention. Ava arrived with Adrian, medical kit in hand, heart in her throat. The other families were already there, 3 groups, maybe 20 people total, all armed, all watching each other with the kind of wariness that preceded violence. A man stepped forward from the largest group, older, well-dressed, the kind of dangerous that didn't need to announce itself. Adrian Knox, he said, punctual as always. Vincent, Adrian's voice was controlled. Let's skip the pleasantries. You wanted a meeting. Here I am. Here you are. Brought your nurse, I see. Vincent's eyes slid to Ava. Smart. Someone will need to patch up the wounded. There won't be wounded if we handle this civilly. Civilly, Vincent laughed. You're trying to go legitimate, Knox. Abandoning the old ways. That makes you weak, and weakness gets exploited. Or it means I'm evolving, building something sustainable instead of burning through people like they're disposable. Pretty words. But words don't hold territory. Power does. And you're losing yours. Am I? Adrian's voice went cold. Because from where I'm standing, you're the one scrambling. Going after doctors, nurses, civilians. That's not power. That's desperation. Vincent's smile disappeared. Careful, Knox. No, I'm done being careful. Adrian stepped forward. You want my territory? Take it. But you'll pay for every inch in blood. Your people's blood. And when you finally own what's left, you'll find it's worthless because I've burned every bridge, salted every field. There won't be anything left to rule. You're bluffing. Try me. The tension snapped taut. Hands moved toward weapons. Ava's pulse thundered. This was it. The moment where everything either resolved or exploded into violence there was no coming back from. Then Thomas stepped forward from Adrian's group. Or, he said calmly, there's a third option. Everyone turned to look at him. Knox walks away, Thomas continued. Gives up the territory, the businesses, all of it. Retires peacefully. You get what you want without the bloodbath. Adrian stared at him. Thomas, I'm serious. Thomas looked at Vincent. That work for you? Complete surrender, no retaliation, clean transfer of power? Vincent considered. He'd have to leave the city. Can't have him nearby plotting revenge. Done, Thomas said before Adrian could respond. He leaves, goes somewhere far away, starts over clean. You get everything, he gets to live. Everybody wins. Except I lose everything I built, Adrian said through clenched teeth. You keep your life, and hers. Thomas nodded toward Ava. Isn't that worth more than territory? The question hung in the air. Ava saw Adrian struggling with it, saw the calculation behind his eyes. Everything he'd worked for versus a chance at something different. Power versus peace. The life he knew versus the life he might have. Fine, Adrian said finally. I walk away. But my people, the ones who've been loyal, they get protection. Safe passage, no retaliation. Agreed, Vincent said. As long as you're gone within 48 hours. We'll be gone in 24. They shook on it. A deal made in the shadows, sealed with the promise of violence avoided rather than committed. As they walked away, Ava felt like she could breathe for the first time in weeks. You knew, she said to Thomas in the car. You planned this. Someone had to. Thomas looked at Adrian. You were ready to die for territory you don't even want anymore. Seemed stupid. It was my responsibility. It was a trap. This way you get out with your life and your conscience mostly intact. Thomas smiled slightly. Call it my retirement gift. Adrian was quiet for a long time. Then, thank you. Don't thank me yet. You still have to figure out what comes next. What came next happened fast. Adrian liquidated everything he could, transferred power to Thomas and his remaining loyal people, made arrangements for those who wanted to leave the life entirely. Helen decided to retire for real, moved to the coast, sent Ava a postcard that said, "Only stay safe, kid." Marcus recovered fully, went back to the hospital with a story about a mugging that no one quite believed but no one questioned either. Sarah reached out, tentative, asking if they could talk. Ava met her for coffee, couldn't tell her everything but told her enough. They weren't quite friends again yet, but they were working toward it. And Ava packed up her life for the second time, this time knowing exactly what she was running toward instead of away from. They chose a small city on the West Coast, quiet, unremarkable, the kind of place where people minded their own business. Adrian used his contacts to set them up with new identities. Not quite witness protection, but close enough. What will you do? Ava asked him the night before they left. They were in the warehouse one last time, the clinic empty, equipment packed up for donation to free clinics that needed it. I don't know, Adrian admitted. I've been in this life since I was 12, never thought about what comes after. That's terrifying. It's also kind of exciting. He pulled her close. We get to figure it out together. Build something new. Something that doesn't require quite so much blood. I like the sound of that. Me too. They stood there in the empty clinic. Two people who'd saved each other in ways that had nothing to do with medicine and everything to do with being seen, being understood, being worth the risk. I'm scared, Ava admitted. Of what? That we won't know how to be normal. That all we know is crisis and chaos. Then we'll learn. Adrian kissed her forehead. We've learned harder things. He was right. They had learned impossible things, how to trust across impossible divides, how to love in the middle of war, how to believe in futures that seemed unreachable. Learning to be normal would be easy by comparison. The flight west took 6 hours. Ava spent most of it looking out the window, watching the country slide by below, thinking about everything she was leaving behind. Her career at the hospital, her apartment, Sarah. The life she'd planned before a rainy night in a stranger's car changed everything. But she wasn't mourning, wasn't grieving, because she'd gained more than she'd lost. Purpose, meaning, love that felt real instead of hypothetical. Adrian held her hand the entire flight. Didn't let go even when she fell asleep against his shoulder. Didn't let go when they landed in their new city. Didn't let go when they walked into their new apartment with its empty rooms and blank slate potential. This is it, he said, looking around. Our chance to start over. Scared? Ava asked. Terrified. Good, me too. They laughed, and it felt like releasing something they'd both been holding too tight for too long. Ava found work at a community health clinic. It paid less than the hospital, had fewer resources, served populations that reminded her why she'd become a nurse in the first place. People who fell through the cracks, who needed help they couldn't afford, who mattered despite what the system said. Adrian struggled more, spent weeks restless, uncertain, unused to civilian life. Then he found a construction company that hired people with records, people trying to rebuild, started working with his hands in ways that built instead of destroyed. It wasn't perfect. They fought about money, about the past, about the nightmares that still woke them both in the middle of the night. Adrian had moments where he missed the power, the control. Ava had moments where she missed the intensity of the warehouse clinic, the high-stakes medicine that had made her feel essential. But they worked through it, built something imperfect and real and theirs. 6 months in, Ava came home to find Adrian on their apartment balcony, watching the sunset.
You okay? She asked, sliding an arm around his waist. Yeah, just thinking. About what? About how different this is. How quiet. He pulled her closer. I always thought I needed the chaos to feel alive. Turns out I just needed something worth being alive for. Ava's throat tightened. That's the sappiest thing you've ever said. I know, don't tell anyone. Would ruin my reputation.
What reputation? You're a construction worker named David who volunteers at the food bank on weekends. Exactly. Very intimidating. Adrian kissed the top of her head. Thank you. For what? For not running. For staying even when you should have left. For believing I could be more than what I was. You were always more than what you were. I just helped you see it. Still, thank you. They stood there as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Two people who'd found each other in the darkest possible circumstances and somehow made it to the other side. It wasn't the ending Ava had imagined when she'd fallen asleep in that car 7 months ago. It was better. Messier, more complicated, built on choices that defied every rule she'd ever learned. But it was theirs, and that made it perfect in all the ways that actually mattered. I love you, Ava said into the growing darkness. I love you too, Adrian replied, even though you're terrible at following rules. Especially because I'm terrible at following rules. Fair point. They went inside as night fell, closed the door on the past, opened themselves to a future that was uncertain and terrifying and full of possibility. And for the first time in her life, Ava Cole felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Not in spite of the chaos. Because of it. Sometimes the wrong choice at the right moment becomes the only choice that makes sense. Sometimes the dangerous path leads somewhere worth the risk. Sometimes falling asleep in a stranger's car changes everything. And sometimes, just sometimes, the story doesn't end with tragedy. Sometimes it ends with hope.